there.
All right, so welcome everybody. We have Kyle Dickens with us. Hope I said your name right.
Yep.
We have Chris from Rigging for Fatties.
What's up, everybody?
So Chris, never mind. I see I already messed up already. Kyle, you
Yes,
want to
sir.
tell us about yourself a little bit?
Well, born and raised here in Oklahoma, a little town called Sapulpa, right, kind of central in the state, just about 20 minutes outside of Tulsa. Basically, good childhood, man. Like I grew up fishing farm ponds and all around the neighborhoods and stuff, and kind of got into catching catfish when I was like probably 15 years old. And I kind of had a passion for flathead fishing ever since. Just local creeks around my house, man, little bitty creeks that you can step across in most places. Me and my brother just started bank pulling them and stuff and learning how to find them, and just kind of transferred all that over into rod and reel fishing off my kayak. And that's pretty much it. That's all I did as a child. I fished and went to school.
So how'd you get into the kayaks, though?
Really just watching YouTube videos. You know, me and my brother, again, we spent a lot of time fishing and stuff, and kind of got tired of going to the spots where everybody else fished, you know, on the bank. So we started kind of doing some research, and you know, we went through the John boat phase. That didn't really work out the way we wanted it to. Started buying kayaks. We kind of just bought what we could afford. That didn't work out either. Ended up going swimming a couple of times. So then we started doing our research, and we found the new canoes. And I noticed that a couple of other guys on YouTube were using them, and they seemed very stable. So we did our research, and I ended up getting an F12 about 18 months ago, and he got a U12 same day. We bought them same time, Tulsa Kayak, walked out the door with both of them. And man, it's been fun ever since. Like, you know, there's nothing better than pulling up to a pile of logs and catching a big catfish, like right under, 6-7 yards of line out.
Yep. Oh, I know. I get such a rush from it every single time too.
But the kayaks just gave us a way to get places where nobody else can get.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's made my success, just off the charts just in a year and a half. I mean, because I'm spending 15 miles, on the water, getting where nobody else can go. And it's a lot of work. You got to knock and talk and get permission to camp and all that stuff. Oklahoma rivers are non-navigable, so there's a few places you're allowed to camp, but not very many. So it makes it a lot harder.
Oh yeah. Especially when you get up into any of those little back streams and everything else, the back creeks and.
Yep. And it's not always possible to find the farmer. It's usually farmland. There's a lot of farmland backs up to these rivers out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I try to do my best, to find out who owns the property, but, sometimes you might be off by 20 or 30 feet. You might have to go a little too far down to find the right sandbar to get to the log jam you want to fish or something. And so then I'm trying to figure out who they are and find their phone number. Google helps a lot. I mean, technology helps tremendously compared to, what it'd be like 15 or 20 years ago. It'd be impossible.
Oh, yeah. You guys have any shoreline that's unpublic, as far as how much feet away from the water line?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch
not
the very beginning.
Not private land. When it comes onto the private land, there's always a distance from the shoreline that is still the waterway considered.
So in our state, man, the property owner owns the land all the way to the center of the stream. So you can be on the water. If it's floatable, you can be on the water with your kayak. But as soon as you put your foot on the bottom of a sandbar to walk, you're trespassing.
Yep.
So, I'm not against my kayak. Again, I got a battleship of a kayak. So, I can throw the seat back and snooze that sucker and just tie off to a log jam fish all night. Don't bother me a bit.
Yep. I enjoy that aspect of those.
That's the worst time in the world to run into a beaver or something because it's dark. I had nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's a true story. I literally got into this log jam that was right next to a beaver slide. Mm-hmm. And I'm just sitting there waiting for a takedown, waiting for something to happen. Next thing I hear some rustling up in the grass. I'm like, what's going on? All I see is this black spot just sliding down, lands right on top of the kayak, and he just looks right at me and hisses real quick and then dives in the water. I'm like, the heck?
I'd have made
Hit
some
me like
sound.
a torpedo.
Yeah. And they're not little. People,
No.
people, they're small, man. A big beaver's 30, 40 pounds. I mean, they look like an Australian shepherd staring at you. They're big.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible how big they are when you really get face to face with one.
Yeah. And
And they're not nice by any means either.
there's a few stretches of river I've been on, particularly on the Cimarron River. Man, there'd be like 3 beavers a mile on that sucker. I've never seen so many daggone beavers in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Just everywhere. I mean, there'd be bunches of 4 or 5 of them just in one spot. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, all night long, all you hear is katoosh. Every time you do something, turn your headlamp on, you hear something out in the water, katoosh. They hit the water and take off.
Either hitting the water or slapping their tails because they're mad that you're there too.
Yeah, exactly. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of nowhere, dead quiet. That's a weird sound.
I'll be honest. I've had quite a few moments where it scared me pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that says they go out on them rivers in the middle of nowhere and fish, especially by yourself, you've never had a moment where you were freaked out a little bit. I'm going to have to say you're probably lying.
Yeah, I definitely suggest don't watch like Cabin in the Woods or anything like that the night before you go out. Or
no wrong turn, no U-turn, none of that stuff either.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch Deliverance before you go fishing. That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely some crazy now. But that's my favorite part about it, man, is to be out there where you don't have any light pollution.
Yep.
No noise. I mean, it's hard to get away from noise pollution. It's really hard, but it is possible. And man, when you achieve both of those, that's the places I like to fish.
Yep.
Silence.
Yep.
I mean, that's I love hearing coyotes and stuff, man. Like to sit out there and listen to coyotes yip and hear raccoons fighting over my bait scraps where I've been chunking it off in the distance. That's just what it's about for me. Biggest problem we got around here is wild pigs, man. The Cimarron river bottoms are just ate up with them. See, I mean, you have to carry with it when you got hogs around like that.
So I was going to ask you about that. If you guys had any around that area, and
oh yeah, they're thick.
Deal with them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're thick. Like the property I sold before I moved here, I lived in Kellyville, and literally like 2 months ago, I think maybe 3. My neighbor actually had the first wild hog I've seen on that side of the turnpike. Actually was trying to tear into my neighbor's hog pens and breed their sows, and I had to go up there and dispatch it for them because they didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I
had a 150-pound boar. I got his skull out here curing. Got about 4-inch cutters on him. He's a pretty good sized pig.
It's pretty cool, actually.
That's my hunting for the last 5 years. That's as close as I've gotten.
Yeah, yes. I'm not the biggest in the hunting or the biggest into the guns as it is, but I had a buddy that told me I was going to go down there and go fish some of the waterways last year. Plans changed, but first thing he was telling me was make sure you're carrying something just because of those hogs. And
yep. Yeah, they can get aggressive. I mean, if you can get 3 feet off the ground in a tree, you're safe, but that don't mean they're going to leave. I mean, you might.
Is it just because your food and the fish smell, if you think, really attracts them in, or?
I don't think it's so much that, but I mean, sometimes I'll use I'll take like a can of corn, to carp fish with or something.
Yep.
And I know they come to that. I mean, they'll come to that from a mile away, especially if it starts to sour a little bit after 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
That's ringing the dinner bell for them things. I mean, that's how we used to hunt them. You bury a 5-gallon bucket of soured corn, they'll dig a hole all the way to China to get all of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's one of the coolest things about this show, doing this and hearing from all the different anglers all over the country, just the different, scenarios and things you deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't deal with that up our way here. Things we are scared with most are just like we were talking before, either beavers or otters.
Right.
they do what they can to avoid you.
Yeah, we're getting a pretty substantial black bear population in this area where I just moved to. So I'm kind of curious if I'll ever get to encounter one of those on a river bottom somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a black bear season here in Oklahoma now for I think the last 5 or 6 years. And I think the first year the quota was filled in like 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, our black bears are tiny compared to what you got up north, like Canada and stuff like that. But still a bear.
Yeah, I was going to say it's still a bear, yeah.
definitely going to be attracted to fish smell, and that's kind of what I smell like when I'm out there for 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
Or worse.
Yeah, I had a puma stalk me last summer.
Yeah.
I was down in Missouri. I had one stalk me from the shoreline.
Yeah, I remember
crap out of me.
Maybe posting on Facebook.
Just the pictures, when you take of it, and yeah, you saw the picture, Terry, with the glowing eye, but it's just because the camera flash.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how I felt like he looked like the whole night, though.
It's kind of creepy to think of something that big can move so stealthy, huh?
Oh, dude, it was insane. I literally thought I lost him multiple times. Next thing I know, I look up, I'm shining the flashlight, and I don't know how he does it and everything, but it seemed like he was able to avoid that light, at certain times, and I just barely catch a glimpse of him. I'm like, good Lord, you're stalking.
I mean, I've got a story about a mountain lion when I was younger. The same guy that taught me how to catch flathead catfish and stuff on the creek that I grew up fishing and stomping around in, he also showed me how to deer hunt and process deer and all that stuff. He showed me a lot. And funny story, like one of the first times I went deer hunting by myself with a rifle, there's a old farmer that had a watermelon patch on this property north of this guy's house. And it was getting ransacked by deer and raccoons and what have you. I mean, he had like 3 acres of melons planted out there. Excuse me. One morning I got there about 5 o'clock in the morning, young and ambitious like I was. I'd sat there for 2 hours before the sun came up. And I go trucking out across there, and I get to the edge of that watermelon field, and my blind's in the woods about 100 yards or so on a real heavy trail. And I step into the woods about 25 feet, and I hear, I never heard it before, but it was a mountain lion squall. And I froze like I did. I was like, I'm 16 years old. I don't know what in the world I need to do. 17 maybe. And it did it again about 5 seconds later. So I sat down against this tree and stuck the muzzle of my gun out after I shined my light up in the tree above me, make sure it wasn't right above me. I sat down, stuck my gun out, and I was like, anything touches this barrel, I'm pulling the trigger. I mean, I don't know what else to do. Come daylight, I hightailed it. I was gone.
Yeah.
And that man was sitting on his porch drinking coffee when I walked out of the woods. He said, "Well, you look like you've seen a ghost." I said, "Dude, I just had a mountain lion squall at me twice. I think he was stalking me." And about that time, that old farmer had come down there they'd come down there every morning and chew the fat, drink coffee, and that old man heard me telling that story, and he started laughing. He said, "That's a motion censored mountain lion squall to scare the deer away. You must have triggered it." That'd have been some very helpful information to know, before I went in the woods at 5 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, that's how my hunting career started.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Definitely not expecting that to be the end to it all.
Yeah, I was a laughing joke of that for a couple of weeks, but no harm, no foul, I guess. Nobody got hurt.
Now you know the things to listen to, though, in the future, right?
Right, yeah. Don't hunt watermelon patches.
That's going to be the problem. Next time you actually hear that, you just be like, it's just another one trying to scare it, and then it'll actually be the one.
Right. Yeah. Now it's just the boy that cried wolf, it's nothing.
Yep. Come back and your shirt's all tore up and everything else. Yeah, I finally found that one.
Yeah. I've dealt with mountain lions before. We lived in Colorado for a while. I mean, I'd find tracks in my backyard. I mean, I worked on a big ranch, and we'd take people out on rides and stuff, and I'd always have to bring up the rear because the host didn't want people back in the back without one of us back there we had 3 big cats, one huge Tom that lived on the ranch where I worked. We had a water hole as a natural spring. We had a camera on it all the time. We had 6 or 7 different bears, dozens of turkeys, dozens of elk, and 3 mountain lions. And one was probably a 190-pound Tom. He was massive.
Jeez.
And so that was a lot of fun, riding green horses in the mountains, not knowing that thing was going to – all it took was a horse to smell that dude, and you're going to probably go for the ride of your life.
Yeah.
So anyway – again, I don't have to worry about that flathead fishing, so that's why I like to do it.
That's why I'm glad where I live. I'm not worried about any of that stuff.
Yep.
We might have a bobcat. That's about it.
Yeah. My wife she gets pictures of those all the time. When she deer hunt and stuff, they'd walk right in. I never get to see them in the wild, but they'd walk right under her stand about every time she'd go.
I've seen a couple of bobcats, and they don't spook me by any means, but
Oh no.
a mountain lion, I think I ran into like a young Tom or something. He wasn't huge, but when he's still standing and looks about the size of a Saint Bernard or whatever, I mean, up on the shoreline, that's still big looking.
That's a big cat.
Yeah, it's big.
How strong they are, and the fact that a house cat can leap like 12 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to think about how far that 150-pound cat can leap. Because I mean, if I'm only 30 feet off the bank, I'm not safe.
I had to listen to a buddy tell me all these stories afterwards and everything too. Like, make sure you paddle real fast. You get out into the middle of the river because those things can swim faster than you can paddle, and all of these stories, and I'm just like, you're not helping me right now. You're not doing anything to help me right now. You're literally just making me shake more in my kayak,
yeah, that's one of my favorite things when we, if we take a new younger guy out fishing with us or something, it's fun to always talk about like some kind of Sasquatch story or something, see if we can freak him out a little bit.
Mess with them.
Like, you've seen Harry and Henderson's. That's not how it is, man. They're way worse than But no, I've had a lot of cool experiences in my life. I've been very fortunate. I've got to live in several different states, from Colorado, Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma. So it's been quite a ride, just moving around and living. That's what we just decided to do it. My dad passed away in 2012, and we just from here started seeing some stuff. Moving around and seeing some country. Colorado's a beautiful place, but I mean, all they got there is fish this big, and that's not fun. Trouts are good to eat, but they're not that. I mean, they're just trout.
Yeah, it's bait.
Everybody mad, but I mean,
that's what I always call it. Anything that's between that size and everything else, that's just bait.
That's all bait. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at every other fish in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, if it ain't a catfish, it's bait.
Yep. I do like my carp though. They're so much fun.
Yeah, but I mean, great bait.
It's great bait, and everybody always says, "Oh, they're trash fish." I'm like, yeah, but they fight really, really good.
Pound for pound, they fight hard.
Yeah,
they do fight hard.
A lot of fun.
I mean, I catch them all the time just on accident fishing, with my bait rod, just waiting on a big bite to go down. I mean, we always carry night crawlers and corn and a couple little pin bait rods, and that's how we pass up the time mostly. I mean, otherwise, just sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting on a big bite.
Yep.
I'll sit there and catch him 6-inch channel cat all day, just happy as a bug, just happy as I'll get out of it.
Yeah.
Catching catfish is catching catfish. They ain't all got to be big.
No.
I think no matter how old you get, you still get that little kid feeling every time you catch one, even if it's a little fish. It's just like, it's still fun no matter what.
Especially if the bite's been hard. If you're not catching any big fish, it's just nice to know you can still do it.
Yeah, right.
At least find one little dumb channel cat to eat a worm makes you feel better.
Yeah. I got a buddy that still calls those outings, even if you catch some little ones, that's still a skunk day.
Yeah.
That's a skunk day. I'm like, that's not a skunk day in my eyes, You still got one. You still got one.
Yep.
You catch a fish, you catch a fish.
I mean, really, channel cats are kind of underrated in the catfish world by a lot of folks. I mean, they're not as big, but pound for pound, they fight hard.
Oh, yeah.
You come out here, we catch 20-pound cats
make bait as well. I was reading some comments.
Little cats make a good bait.
Yes, they do. I mean, bullhead catfish, one of my favorite live baits for flatheads because you can use them for 2 or 3 days.
I have never caught a flathead on a bullhead.
You have never?
Never.
Me either.
Really?
Yeah.
I've caught, I bet you I've caught 200 or 300 on bullheads.
Green sunfish is my bait.
Green sunfish. I mean, if I could pick one live bait for the rest of my life, it'd be green sunfish.
Same here.
I mean,
by far.
They're tough. They get pretty big.
Yeah.
And I mean, they make good cut bait too if they die. So,
yep.
Bluegills and bait, but they're weak. They die real easy.
Oh yeah. Like it's an hour or 2 hours when you bait, they're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody talks about, either the shad or all those, and they're great baits, in certain waters, but through the whole Midwest here and all the small creeks up north, like Terry's area. Oh God, yeah. Green sunfish by far is my favorite. And
Yeah.
I've had one green sunfish get swallowed 3 times and he was still kicking. I figured after that third time, that third fish I caught off of him, I took him off the hook and I let him go in the river. I was like, you go die peacefully.
Yeah, that dude earned it. I mean, he earned the right to die the way the way he was going to die. He's just
watching.
He
I just wanted to say real quick, my son is watching on. So hi, Alex.
What's his name?
Alex.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, when
That's trying to embarrass him, but
okay. When we when we had our brief time in Tennessee, the big bait there is skipjack.
Skipjack. Yeah.
I mean, they're great bait, but if you don't use them the same day or the next day, I mean, at that point they're trash. In my opinion, they turn into butter. You can't hardly cast them without throwing it off.
Yep.
Just like shad, once you freeze them or thaw them out or whatever, I mean, if they're not fresh, they're really, ice about 3 days is about as good as you're going to get. So I just like the live baits because, like you said, the green sunfish, I keep them alive for 2 or 3 weeks at a time in my big bait tank.
Yep.
So I can always have, 10 or 15 in there just in case I'm going to have a quick run down to the creek or something. I have plenty of bait. So that's my biggest step down here where I'm at now is like I've lost all my bait spots. Like I got Lake Eufaula, which has got tons of rocky shore. I'm sure I can find something, but I like little creeks. I mean, there's nothing funner to me than the ultralight on a small creek on the side of the road somewhere just tearing up them big green sunfish.
Yep.
And they fight hard. For some reason, those little creek fish they're just mean. They're like the sunfish world.
I have a local pond just down the road from me. It's just full of green sunfish.
Oh, man, that'd be nice.
I go in there 20 minutes at a time. I can catch probably 30, 40 of them.
Oh, my goodness.
Now I'm jealous of both of you guys. I still haven't found my green sunfish spot. There's a couple areas all around here. They all got green sunfish in them, but they're very, very hard to catch. And when I do catch one, boy, do I ever treat that thing like the most precious thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've even got a couple of buddies that live around me that'll, they've got really good spots and they know how much I like them. And I'll be like, all I can catch is these stupid bluegills. And he'd be like, well, hey, man, run up to my house. I'll give you 6. I got 6 big green sunfish in the tank. His name's Don James. He's done it for me once before. It was a lifesaver because I caught a big flathead on one of them green sunfish. So he helped me out a lot. He should be watching. He better be.
Yeah, so I have another pond that has full of bullheads. So
yeah,
and they want
you
them out.
Should try that bullhead out more. See, it's hard to get our bullheads around here though. So when we do get one, I do always try them out. Still, I never catch any flatheads off them. Never understood why. That's all I hear from everybody. Use a bullhead. Use a bullhead. I never have.
I've never caught one during the day. I will say.
Never.
Always use them at night. I've never tried them during the day. But our bullhead pond that we have right now, man, the problem with it is you can't catch any small ones.
That's how the pond is I have.
Yeah, they're like 14, 15 inch monsters.
Yeah.
So if you don't put 8 ounces of weight on them, hell, you're ringing your bells all night long. You can't tell if you're getting a bite or if it's your stupid bait.
Yep. Yeah, no, I've tried daytime, nighttime, tried them every which way, and never have any luck with them.
Yeah.
Never understood it. Yep. I'll put on a piece of cut bait or something. I've caught more flathead off cut bait than ever bullheads. Definitely more on green sunfish though. I've tore up some flatheads on green sunfish though.
Do you trim the fins off or you just cast them whole?
The entire time I bank pole fished, I never did that. But the last time I rod and reel fish with them for bait, I just wanted to try it. Like, this is what everybody's talking about doing, so I want to do it. I think it probably does help them get eaten a little better. But if you've ever held a bullhead with its spines and then tried to hold a bullhead without them, it sucks trying to put a hook in them. I'll tell you that right now. Those spines grip. You take those off, it's like trying to hold a bar of soap and jam a 12-aught through it.
Oh shit!
I can believe it.
It is. Now, I do it because I'm really bad about cramming way too many baits in my bait tank. And I think when I do it, I usually take like 8 bullheads. And by the time I get to the river, I'll have 6 or 7 bluegill floating, and they'll be bleeding. And I think they get spined by them bullheads, and it kills them.
Yeah, punctured enough times and everything else.
I started trimming them just for that reason. It keeps my other bait safe.
Yep.
And if I let them back go in the pond, I mean, they'll live just fine as big as they are. There ain't no bird going to eat them. They're too big. So, but
I agree with that logic there, just because of your other baits. If you're mixing the baits together, it's definitely.
On the
but otherwise, as far as clipping, there's no reason to. They eat them all the time.
I'm not going to do it anymore, except for to keep my other bait safe. But I've learned last couple of trips I've taken. I mean, unless I can get green sunfish, I'm not even going to mess with trying to haul bluegills. If it's more than an hour or two away, especially when it gets hot. I mean, they just die too easy. I'm kind of over it. I'll rely on night crawlers in my throw net when I get to the river I'm fishing and just catch local bait.
Yep.
I mean, I always keep a couple of bluegill in the freezer, so I mean, I can always throw. I keep like 10 in a Ziploc bag, so I can throw them in the cooler. And when I get to the river, take them out. And by the time I'm ready to fish, they're thawed out enough I can cut them up and fish with them. But
a box of night crawlers is all you ever really kind of need when you go out. Sometimes
everything is a crawler
or a can of corn.
Yep. I usually take both. I mean, I'll double them up on there because if I get to the river and catch me a 4 or 5 pound buffalo, then I know I'm set for about 24 hours on bait.
Yeah.
Make small bait out of the fillets, and I got a couple of big chunks of body for big baits at night. So, because I typically, depending on the time of year, the fall is my favorite. Like, I know a lot of guys like catfishing in the spring, so I've got this phobia. I've got this problem. I worry about the water levels in the small creeks and rivers I fish around here because they can go from 0 to 10 feet over your head like in 30 minutes. So I've kind of got this. I've got this kind of. I guess I'm a chicken. I always worry about that in the springtime. In the fall, it's not so much a problem. You're not having spring rains everywhere. But in the fall and in the spring, like I always try. When I get ready to go to bed, I usually try to put out at least one bait. Size of my hand. A big fillet of carp or something that weighs a pound or two. That's usually where the big fish come from.
Yep.
But I've caught, I guess I can't say that. My personal best flathead came on a little bitty tiny body section of bluegill. The size of a silver dollar.
I was literally just going to say the same thing. My PB Blue, too, was off of my tiniest piece. It was one of my last pieces of bait in my cooler. Tiny little piece. And I'm like, wow, at least I might be able to catch something small, have some fun with it by the end here. Biggest blue ever.
Probably one of my smallest flatheads on rod and reel probably came on one of the biggest green sunfish I've ever seen. That's the only time I was mad at catching a flathead. I was like, that was like the best green sunfish I've ever seen, and a 4-pound flathead engulfed him.
Oh, I have a video. I think we have like a 10-inch green sunfish, and my dog caught seriously a 2-pound flathead off of it.
Oh my god!
I see that rod went down like, Riverland, you have a big one on this wall. I mean, that's a big sunfish. You have a big. She's reeling it in. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It might have been 2 pounds.
I remember that video.
Yeah.
That's
your
crazy.
amount of excitement in that was,
Yeah.
It's crazy what they can eat, man. It really is. It's crazy. I mean, it's again, I used to kind of be when we did a lot of bank pole fishing, we ate a lot of catfish. Like we ate a bunch of catfish. So I cleaned a lot of flatheads, and I don't do that anymore. I've learned how much fun they are to catch and release and catch again. But the things I find in their stomachs are quite amazing. Like I have found red ear, like a 8-inch red ear turtle shell in the stomach of a flathead. I have found 3-pound flathead in the stomach of a 20-pound flathead. I mean, it's crazy what they'll eat. Hell, the last time we was there, I caught like a 6 or 7 pounder. We were going to keep him to eat, me and Austin, and I strung him up. And about 10 minutes later, I looked down at him, and he had a 12-inch channel cat coming out of his mouth.
Wow.
Yeah. I think if they can get into their gullet and everything, they'll take it. Yeah. I don't think it matters sometimes what it even is.
Well, that's why I believe these stories I hear of guys catching flatheads, kind of like, in distress on the surface where they've tried to eat something too big and they can't get it down.
Mhm.
I mean, I caught one that way myself personally. It was like a 38 pounder, and he ate like a 7-pound channel cat. And that channel cat opened up on him and blocked him up, and he was barely alive when I caught him.
Yeah, dug the hooks in on the sides and everything. Yep.
Basically, slowly choking that flathead to death. I mean, he was alive, but I mean, not very. I mean, it wasn't a struggle to get him out of the water. He was very lethargic.
Yeah, the one Terry that, like he was talking about, I think that green sunfish looked like he was about twice the size of the small or the Flatheads.
Yeah.
Whole body and everything else. Like Flathead looks smaller than the green sunfish.
Yeah.
But yeah, he still tried to eat them.
Like I believe Steve Douglas even said something about this. He said the reason nobody's catching 100-pound flatheads is because nobody's using 5-pound live baits. So like I'm trying to figure out how to do that, but you ever try to hold a 5-pound carp in one spot? I don't know how to do it.
I have literally tried it every year. Got at least about a 3-pound carp, just something good size. Get it out there. Try to anchor it down. Never been able to anchor down, but I said, whatever. Go ahead, swim all over you want. Eventually you're going to get chased down by something. And I've caught a couple of 30-pound flatheads, but yeah.
I think the coolest thing I've ever saw, I was reading Chad's comment here about flats being the kings, and they'll even eat, blue cats is close to the same size. I've caught it was probably about a 30-pound blue cat, and you could see the pad marks right on his stomach, like that flathead bit him just right to get the fat of his stomach. I mean, it had to have been like a 50 or 60-pound flathead just smoked the side of that blue cat and left a big old bite, just a big old bite mark on the side of him. Looked like he'd been clamped in a vise.
Me and Chad, like 2 years ago, he caught a blue that looked like it was literally just came out of the mouth of something.
Yeah.
About half of the body just looked like it was just tore up and sucked up and everything else. And eventually it got out somehow and everything. But just like we were talking, trying to take down something bigger than it could, or the spikes and the fins or whatever, But
flatheads are so bad about grabbing hold of something and just sitting there with it for 20 minutes. I've waited on flatheads to take the rod down for half an hour before, didn't even know if they were still there or not. Just hoping because I know that bite was what it was. But I mean, if you get in a hurry, you're just going to pull the bait out of his mouth. And I've had it happen bank pole fishing. We'd pull up and the bank pole would be down in the water. We'd get all excited. I'd reach down and grab it, start pulling on it, and then a half digested 3-pound channel cat come flying out of the water and slap the side of my canoe because he had it all the way down, but the hook didn't get him because the channel cat, the bluegill, and the flathead ate the channel cat.
Yeah, I had one 4 years ago. I literally could see my line and everything. It was even moving around, but if you tried to do anything with it, it dropped.
Yeah.
Every time. You could see the line moving around multiple times and everything, and never could get it to just hook up, and I just said, forget it. Went to sleep for the night, woke up the next day, and the rod bent over because he finally wanted to run off with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Flatheads are fun. You got to give them time. That's for sure.
I guarantee you, like I make mistakes all the time with it too because I get excited. But I mean, patience with fly. That's what's so fun about it, man. Like if you're not on your game when they're biting finicky, you're not going to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
Or blue cat's just the opposite. If you're not hurrying up, if you don't hurry up and grab your rod, you might not get it. It's going to be gone.
I love the blue cat takedowns.
I've been very fortunate with my kayak rod holders, because they're just little track mount rod holders. I've been very fortunate not to lose one yet catching these, the blue cats from the kayak chair. They're very aggressive, but they're fun.
I'll be honest with you. It's going to happen one of these times.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I literally got mine still plated to my kayak now.
It'll be like my favorite combo probably too. So I'll be getting down to my skivvies and going after it.
Yep. I lost one year and, that was enough for me. I got a steel plate on my kayak now that has all the board out holes for all the rod holders, and it just sits in that, and it's never going to get ripped off. I'm like, nope, never going to have that happen again. Favorite rod and everything too. Favorite reel, both expensive and crap, and I'm just like,
nope. I actually tethered my rod holders down to where they can only go so far forward because of the the mounting system. Which they're pretty solid. I mean, I've had some pretty heavy drag pulled out of them, but I kind of reinforced them a little bit for that very reason. So, and I keep them to where I can reach out real easy and get a hold of them when they go down. So,
Yeah.
as long as I'm not looking around and watching the eagles or something, I'm usually paying pretty good attention to my stuff. But there's been a few times I just hear the sound of that line squealing out of that reel and look up and see that thing, rod tip down in the water.
Yeah, they excite me. I have such a hard time trying to focus on flatheads just because I enjoy watching that takedown with blues.
Yeah,
I barely fish for them.
I've had. Let me scoot this just a little bit closer. I've had some of my biggest flatheads, man. Well, matter of fact, my three of my biggest, my PB included, my 64 included, there was no finicky bite. Like you heard that bell rattle when they engulfed that bait, and they turned around and just went to the store. They were gone. Like that. Both of those two big flatheads, man, like it was all I could do to get the rod holder out on that 72.6. Like it was insanity. Like that's all I can say. It all happened so fast. Like I still have to sit and think about how that happened. And then like my brother's behind me, watching. Both of us had just put GoPros on our boats, and I forgot to hit the record button.
God.
I mean, I was been on the river for 45 minutes. I just didn't expect it to happen, and that's when it happens.
Yep.
Next thing I know, I got a rod in this hand. I'm trying to unclip my boat in this hand, and the fish has gone out and went like 30 yards down the river and cut back behind the little rock point and buried itself up in a log. And I reeled myself down to him. It took me about 5-6 minutes to get him out of there, but I finally pulled him free.
That's awesome.
And when I saw him, apparently my eyes got the size of saucers.
It looked like it in your picture and everything. Your eyes were still that big.
Yeah. My brother said, I looked at him when the fish surfaced right beside my boat. I turned and looked at my brother. He said, "Dude, if your eyes had gotten any bigger, I don't know if they'd have popped out of your head." I was like, "Well, I mean, that's a big catfish. I'd never seen nothing like that up to that point. So, let alone to catch him on rod and reel and be fortunate enough to pull him out of a tree. I mean, that was what was crazy. To pull a fish that big out of heavy timber is just amazing."
Yeah.
And that's the problem with how I fish. I only land about 50% of my fish.
Did you try and force him out, or you let him kind of work his way out?
Both. I did both. I'm very hard on my equipment. Like if it's either going to break or it's going to move, whatever it's hung into. I'm not lax whatsoever on my rods. I tried to force him out, and he'd move a little bit, and I could feel that line sawing on stuff. I felt a couple of branches break. And usually when that starts to happen, if I can't get him to come out, I will click him loose, and I'll give him about 3 feet of line. And what my thinking behind that is, like, if they're in a log and their heads they're up against the log like so, if I give him a chance to back out, maybe I can bump him around it. That's my thinking when I do that.
That's kind of my thinking too. And every time I've kind of let them back out like that, you feel where they kind of work down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I do is try and reel down again, and I can just feel that thump, and all I keep thinking is their head going.
Yeah, right. You try to pull back up, and you feel it hit that same spot. Well, on that 72, the second time I did that, I felt that bump, but then he came around.
Yeah, you got him to finally roll over on it.
Yeah, he finally rolled over that log, and man, when that fish come to the top, I was like, well, I mean, I like I said, that was insane. Like, never would have thought I'd pull up on a little piece of cut bluegill like that. I've said it before on a 51, like literally 100 yards up the river from where I caught that one. Like, I never expected that to happen. And that's, like I said, that's when it happens, when you least expect it.
Yep.
And I think it freaked everybody out that I was able to, I just snatched that fish up and lifted him right in my kayak. Never even felt afraid or nervous or nothing. Just no issue whatsoever. I love my kayak. Like when I landed that fish in that kayak, I told myself right then there, I'll never have another kind of kayak. Like that's the one kayak I want.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way as you. I got an F12 as well.
Yeah.
I also got a feel free kayak.
Yeah.
So that's a lot more narrow than the new canoe.
Yep.
I caught a 76-pound blue, and I tried to pull him in the one time, and I wasn't having that same success as the new canoe. I don't worry about it in the new canoe. I can always crank them in and not have any fear, but that feel free, I ended up paddling to the shore because I couldn't get him in. Just holding on to him with one hand, paddling with the other, go right to the shore with it, and land it on the shore.
Catch the Fever and Outdoors asked what kind of kayak. It is a new canoe Frontier F12. They also make a U12, which is the unlimited. Both very good boats.
Oh yeah.
My brother has the U12. I've got the F12. So, like I said, we bought them same day, and like they're awesome. Like the only way I would replace my I wouldn't replace it, but I'd love to have an F10 for smaller water.
Really?
Yeah. Local creek, again, I don't live up there anymore, but the local creek where I grew up fishing, man, that was the first place I stuck my new canoe F12, and I probably put 5 years worth of damage on it in one day. Like
I went out in a F10 before. Have you ever gone out in an F10 before?
I have not.
I've gone out in an F10 before, and I kind of worried, if you're doing the same style of fishing, I've had where that front end kind of gets a little bit more movement.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's just, that shorter size, you get that length of that F12 or whatever. It's more, gives you that stable on both back end and the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I felt it more where you got the nerves come up a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big enough guy. I can handle that F12 just fine. I mean, the F10 would be something like I'd like to have for my wife to come out and fish with me, or just a spare boat. If a buddy wanted to go, I'd be like, well, yeah, take the F10 out, whatever, use it.
Yeah.
But the F12, man, the only thing I change about that boat, and I don't even care about not having flush mount rod holders. I kind of fixed that with I just made me a crate with rod holders, attached to both sides of it and then anchored it in the boat. But I wish the floor was a little more rigid. How you stand up, the floor's kind of spongy, like a water bed. Yeah, I wish the floor was rigid with the U12. That'd be the only thing I'd wish they could change.
Yeah, I wish they would have a little bit thicker plastic so, it was more firm, kind of like the Hobies and all them. They're much thicker plastic, so.
Yeah, well, like the U12. I mean, the U12 floor don't flex like that.
Yeah.
It's got deeper water grooves, and I think the vertical water grooves give the bottom rigidity.
Yeah.
I can throw a throw net out of my boat, no problem. Matter of fact, wish we would have got it on camera. Austin and I were out on a fishing trip with another buddy of ours, and he was on his phone, but he wasn't watching what we ended up. We were throwing a cast net, so I was paddling my F12 around. I'm 230 pounds, 6'3". Austin's 6'3", 240 pounds. He's in the front of my boat throwing an 8-foot throw net while I paddle him around in my kayak. Yeah,
you guys are braver than me.
If that wasn't a new canoe commercial, I don't know what would be.
No, seriously.
I mean, that's 500 pounds of dudes throwing an 8-foot throw net out of a plastic boat.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I give you guys some serious props. I've almost thrown myself into the water multiple times, let alone having two guys on doing that. That's props.
Well, I'm not going to say I didn't prepare my boat for it. I took all my electronics off, took everything off. I was prepared for that boat to flip over.
Okay. Yeah.
I was prepared for the worst. But
so
we all got to have that one flip over. You got to have that one, just get it out of the way. You might as well do it while you're throwing a cast net.
Might as well. I'm fortunate I have not had my flip over yet. My brother took his first time out, and it was totally an accident. Like, it was not the boat's fault. It was just our inexperience caused it to happen. But I'm sure mine's coming. I fish too many shallow, fast little rivers that got stick ups everywhere. It's going to happen.
It'll happen when you're at your most confident.
Yeah,
it's what literally I've had flip overs, and it was like when I felt like I was in my great spot, nothing can happen here, and then all of a sudden I hit one little thing or I did one stupid thing, and boom, I flipped over. I'm like,
I was reading Chris's comment.
Oh yeah, those F12 Unlimiteds, all of them. I got a buddy that's 6'6" and he's 356, and he stands up in his.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing I did with my F12 was take it home and throw it in my pond, and literally just took my phone out of my pocket. I think my wife was sitting on the dock, and I walked from the front, opened the hatch, shut it, walked across, stepped over the back seat, knelt down in the back, splashed the water, got up, stepped back over the chair, and sat down. Yeah, that was my stability test. With it unloaded, you put a little more weight in there, you get down to secondary stability is a lot better.
Yeah, I like those Unlimiteds for the fact that you don't have that open compartment on the front. It's just all open. I like that.
Yeah. So what I did, how I've managed to take my F12. I didn't really care for that little dry storage bag up in the front either because it's not enough to really hold anything.
Yep.
So what I did was I pulled that hatch out, pulled that bag out, and right in front of that I drilled a small hole and dropped some paracord through, just tied a knot in it, and I sealed that up with hot glue. So I got about a 3-foot cord in there. And what I did was I tied a clip off to that. I'll put my tent, my ground pad, all kinds of stuff in there, and I'll clip it off to where it can't slide back, because it slides back in the back of the boat, you can't get it. So I put half my camping gear down in the hull of the boat, just tie it off to where I pull it back out when I get where I'm going.
I did the exact same thing. I completely opened mine up, and I didn't clip anything on the front. I just let everything kind of roll and sit in there. There's enough rigidity, enough spot, room that it ain't gonna go as far back, and I got tents, I got everything in as well.
See,
that is the nice thing with it.
When I have mine loaded, I have a kayak rack I built for my truck, so I can haul 3 kayaks on a short bed truck.
Mm-hmm.
So when I unload my kayak, it's 5 feet in the air. So when it tilts down that far, everything in the front takes off.
Okay.
Because that's how I haul it. I mean, everything stays in there when I'm on the water or not. Like all my tent and everything stays in there.
No,
I pull it out occasionally and make sure it's not getting wet or anything, because it will condensate in there some. In Oklahoma, we're so humid, but
I got the same thing here. I always kind of, I always wondered with that and always looked, and every time I get home and I'll be like, constantly flipping over the kayak, just looking, see if, did I get a crack? Did I get something somewhere, and just learned that they're just very good at, getting that moisture in there, just the condensation.
Yeah, I learned that lesson real fast because I think the second time I took it out, I brought it home and there's, not a lot, like a half a cup of water in the boat. I'm freaking like this thing's brand new, it's supposed to have a whole warranty, a lifetime, all that crap. They're going to fix it,
Yeah.
To find out it was just condensation.
Yeah.
It went from like 90 degrees to like 60 degrees and back up to 90 degrees. So it's just sweat. Garage floor was soaking wet, so I should have known better, but we live and learn.
Yeah, it's surprising. The new canoe, it's one of the kayaks that really kind of does that what's inside. I got like a feel freeze. I got a few other kayaks, and I never get that condensation buildup like I do in that new canoe, and I just never understood it. But
the only thing I've done to keep that from happening is I leave the front hatch open, I pull the bag out, and I unscrew the little drain screw in the back of the boat right by the motor mount.
Yep.
I just unscrew that little drain screw, and for some reason, it's never done it again. I just leave those 2 things open, and it gets enough air circulation. It doesn't do that.
That's a great idea. I've actually never thought of doing that.
I don't want it to mold. I don't want anything to get moldy in there. Last thing I want to do is pull my stuff out to sleep and have mold all over it.
That's a great idea. I'm going to start doing that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm good for
no more condensation for me.
And Chris says he can stand up, but it does take some time, man. Like, I mean, even when I go 2 or 3 months without fishing, which that shouldn't be even legal, but if I'm not in my boat for 2 or 3 weeks, even like the first time I stand up or something, like I feel it's a little squirrely. Like it takes a couple of seconds to get your sea legs back.
That's my best friend Chad, and he's always got those.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the snakes are the last thing I worry about. Like, I don't care about snakes. Like, I've been into herpetology my whole life, so I mean, I live in the South. I'm not afraid of snakes. Don't bother me. As long as I stay out of my tent, I don't care what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. Other than fishing, that's what I did as a kid: run around catching snakes all over the farms around where I lived and in the woods and stuff. So
yeah,
I've cottonmouth's about the last one I do want to run into, but most of the times when I'm fishing, the water's gotten cold and they're very sluggish if they're even still around. I mean, I probably can count on just one hand how many snakes I see a year when I'm fishing.
Yeah, those cottonmouths are the only ones that really they scare me. They get into all those rocks and all those little back places that you just don't see them. Rattlesnakes, everything else. I never get worried about them. Just those cottonmouths.
Yeah, I mean, like in worst case, I mean, I've got a 109-inch paddle for my kayak. I mean, that's got a good reach on it. If they're close enough, I can reach one with that. I'm going to move them away.
Yeah, just push them along and everything. They don't want to mess with you as much as you don't want to mess with them.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they want to stay away from me just the same.
Yeah,
they're just out there doing snake stuff. I don't blame them for it.
Yep.
I mean, if somebody steps on me, I'll probably bite them too. You know. I mean,
see, I don't have to worry about no cottonmouths where I live. So
yeah, we got a lot of rattlesnakes down here too.
Yeah.
We've actually got an eastern pygmy rattler around here that's you can't really detect it. I mean, those are probably the worst, you know, especially for like dogs and kids and stuff because you can't hear them. You know, they're like 14 inches long, full grown.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're not as bad as a diamondback, but they're I mean, you don't want to dance with one if you don't have to.
Yeah. We just have the diamondbacks up here, and
yeah,
they let you know they're there well before you ever get close enough.
Yeah, but I've stumbled across one rattlesnake that I could actually hear in Oklahoma. Me and my wife were out looking for mushrooms along a little creek bottom, same creek I grew up fishing. We were looking for mushrooms, and I took a step and I heard this weird, it just sounded like a.
Yeah.
I never heard that. That sounded like a cicada or something. Took one more step and then I was like, I just backed out the way I came, turned around and went and found my wife. Said, "We're going home." I don't want mushrooms that bad.
I love that you said the cicada because it's literally the first thing I thought too when I first rolled up on one too. I was like, "Oh, cicada." I almost did the same thing. It was my first one ever, and
they're thick around here. Like that's basically what you hear. That's the summertime music in the backyard in August is cicadas. But yeah, like I said, most of the places I fish, the main thing I worry about is probably pigs. I mean, snakes are the last thing on my list. You know, obviously we all hate turtles. They're the worst on cut bait. And we have the glorious soft shells here that actually can swim like a fish. You know, they can actually feel like you've got a fish on when you hook one.
Yeah. Big soft shells.
Big soft shells are a pain. Not to mention their necks are like 14 inches long. So you're trying to get your circle hook back. That's a lot of fun.
And they smell.
And they stink.
Yep.
I mean, snapper turtles stink. I mean, I don't know, they stink. But so like what's do you guys run mono or braid? I'm just kind of curious.
I do braid with a mono lead.
Okay, same. That's what I do.
Yep, same. Braid with mono.
Yep. Kind of have to do that if you're fishing structure very much at all, I guess. I just kind of thought I'd ask a question.
Yeah, I don't know. The mono, you got that stretch and everything else that happens with it. And I like the braid, especially, like I said, I target blues more than I do flatheads. So, I like that where I don't get the stretch as much. I get much better hookup,
Yeah,
I guess with the flatheads and everything, I wouldn't mind that stretch sometimes,
Yeah, every situation I fish, like there's just no way I could run mono. Like I can't afford, if I got because I like to fish on top of them, but there's times when I'll cast, 40, 50 yards to a brush pile because there's nowhere else for me to clip. It's just a convenient spot to clip off to be good and solid.
Yep.
Cast at the log jam, get 2 or 3 rods on it. You got 40 yards of line out and you get a big take, you can't afford 3 feet of stretch.
Yeah.
That mono will stretch 2, 3, 4 feet. And 2, 3, 4 feet deeper in that log jam, you can kiss that flathead goodbye.
Yeah. I can totally get that. When you got your small rivers, small creeks, and you're throwing it to log jams, yeah, you definitely don't want to have that stretch. If you're bank
structure, that's all I got. Sandbar drop offs are good. I fish shallow, sandy rivers with a lot of structure. Like I don't care if it's got so much structure, it's hard to paddle. That's the kind of rivers and creeks I like.
Yep.
But that's majority of what I fish is logs, timber.
Yeah.
I love rocks. Don't get me wrong. It's that there's just not a lot of rocks in the creeks and rivers around here. There's some, but there's a lot more log jams than anything else.
If you're not snagging, you're not catfishing.
Dude, if I don't break off 10 times a day, I'm not doing it right.
Yeah. That's another reason I go with the braid though too. Just the amount of line that you can get on your reel, you can't afford one weekend alone. You'd be real lining that reel and everything if you're doing the mono.
And even if because I run the same size leader as I do braid,
Yep.
I mean, 9 times out of 10, the leader is going to fail. The mono is going to be frayed just enough; it's going to fail before the braid does.
Yep.
I mean, so I don't think I've busted off a whole rig, but maybe 3 or 4 times all last year.
You ever up your poundage on your mono leader compared to your braid, or do you run about the same?
I run 80 on both.
80 on both.
I do have some 60-pound mono leader, which I'll run that occasionally, but I've had that fail a couple of times, and I don't, like I said, normally the braid's going to be a little bit more resistant to breaking unless it's damaged. Of course, as well as anybody, that braid touches a rock, it's done.
Yep.
But as long as it stays abrasion free, that braid's going to handle the stress a lot better than that mono, because like we talked, that mono is going to stretch.
Yep.
And that little bit of stretch makes it a little bit weaker, and that mono gives up first.
Yeah, that's another reason I don't care for the mono as much. Once you get that stretch happening, if you got a nick, you get any little nicks on that mono, and it gets that stretch, you just almost snapped off right away.
Right. See, that's the other thing that takes a lot of time is I like to run 2 rods on the front of my boat, and I've always got another rod rigged up at least behind me, or 2 or 3, whatever I can carry.
Yeah.
Typically carry 3 catfish rods and a bait rod, because that's how many rod holders I got on my boat. But I like to have one rigged up behind me. That way, if I bust one off, I can get another rod in the water while I'm re-rigging. Otherwise because I sit on a spot, 10, 15 minutes tops. If nothing's happening, I'm packing. I might only move a few feet, but I'm not sitting there for an hour hoping something's going to wake up. Like, if it ain't biting, I'm leaving.
Especially during the daytime. Sometimes you can't wait, because they really are. They could be 5 feet right in front of where you're sitting, and just that move up 5 feet all of a sudden made that difference.
So this is there's a good question on here. If you guys don't mind, I was going to answer it. Chris asked, what do you do for your trips as far as drinks, food, stuff like that? What do you say, poles and tackle? So all my catfish rods are 7.6. I'm sure you guys probably, that's pretty standard rod size. Yep. As far as food, man, like I've started doing, I'll take like a couple cans of chili, like a bag of Fritos and some tortillas. That's 2 different types of meals right there. I love the Mountain House dehydrated stuff. And a particular individual turned me on to eating sardines because they're so easy they're so easy. They don't require refrigeration. If you can get past eating, what smells like bait, they're really a superfood if you think about it. Anything you can eat the entire body of is a superfood.
It's all they're mustard flavored.
Huh?
They gotta be mustard flavored.
I don't mind ones. I like both, but if they're not mustard or hot sauce, you just throw them in the river. I don't want them. At that
Chris
point,
loves his
shad. At least shad with yellow on it is better than shad with no yellow on it.
But I love fishing, but I can't eat fish, and sardine is literally on the top of the worst by far. There is nothing that comes close to as nasty as those things are.
You put a little saltine cracker, great.
Oh my God. You're going to add saltine cracker. Just add that salt to the sardine. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Hey, next time I come to Nebraska, I'll bring some out for you.
The reason I like them, though, and I probably adjusted myself to be able to eat them because I like to eat. Like, I'm not the kind of guy, if I go fishing, I have to eat. Like, I can't fast all day like a couple of guys I fish with. Like, if I don't eat food, I'm not fun to be around. Like, I have to have food. I can
take 2 of
those little cans of sardines. I can eat those at noon, and I'm not hungry till 7 o'clock. So they last. And like I said, they weigh nothing. I've got a kayak a tote right out here on my front porch that I've been getting ready for, just always have ready. I can have 15 cans of sardines in that thing, and it barely takes up any room at all.
Yep.
So they're just easy to have, and I like that. And I got smoked oysters and sardines is what I carry for just kind of like float along, like lunchtime snacks or whatever you want to call it.
Space on the kayak is the most important thing. So if you can find those small meals, those small little things that can get you through like that, that's the key. Yep. So I totally get you guys in your sardine cans and everything else, but not for me.
Chris don't eat sardines either.
No, good job, Chris. My name's Chris as well, so that just makes it
another good.
So he's
is spam.
Oh, probably the biggest thing on the kayak, man, especially when it's hot, is in Oklahoma, is trying to pack enough water.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, you're talking like what is I think it's 7 pounds a gallon or something, and I mean,
Yep.
I'll drink a gallon a day, so like I'm hauling 4 or 5 gallon jugs of water.
That's my biggest thing too. It's more about water and how much water I can bring than it is the food even.
Yeah, I mean, I'll typically take a little bit of like sweet tea or something. I'll usually have like a sweet tea with when I eat, you know, because like I said, I cook when it's time to eat dinner. Like that's my main meal. Like I go all out. Like I'm taking steak or Frito chili pie, or I'm eating a big meal for dinner. I mean, that's just all there is to it. So I'll have like a sweet tea or something for that. And that's why I bought that new canoe, man. Like I can put 400 pounds of crap on there with me sitting on it.
Yep.
So
That's the greatest thing about them. If you can get an insane amount of weight on them.
Yeah, like I don't think you could pile enough on there unless you just used heavy, you know, like lead or something. I don't know if you could pile enough on there to overload them as far as camping gear.
My buddy and his Hobie, he talked about all that stuff all the time too, and I could put so much weight on it. You know, he weighted his thing down to the point that he rode that line of it being sunk, and it probably still wasn't even half of what my new canoe was holding.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Because I mean, I think new canoe is the only canoe out or the only kayak out there that doesn't use the weight of the boat don't count against the payload.
Yep.
So like you know your F-12 is 650 pounds plus the weight. That's insane. That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, your little soft floor, you know, that you're worried about. I think that's one of the reasons that makes it so good. I think it has that stretch and handles that weight so well. The first of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I first, so I've got a little outboard motor that I put on my kayak, and I only ran it a couple of times. I took it off. I didn't like it. I put like 4 hours on the motor, so it's not even broke in yet. It's a 2.5 Suzuki 4-stroke little short shaft.
Yep.
And when we were doing that, I got the bright idea to take a bunch of pool noodles and stick them in my kayak. So the whole back half of my F-12 is packed full of like 30 pool noodles, so it won't sink. And I can't get them out; they're stuck. So
you shoved them in there; they're staying in there.
They're a permanent part of the boat now. Yeah.
Yep.
But
yeah, I got a couple of foam inserts that I've stuffed down in mine too, and
yeah,
you know, it's just smart to have it. You know, you ever get to that point, you know, where you got to worry or whatever, it's still gonna float up.
What's really funny about those is one of my buddy's kayaks, he lost his scupper plugs, and it was a small kayak on top of that. And he was kind of overloading it. He's since got a better kayak now, but anyway, he lost his scupper, so he's sitting in the water. And I mean, it was cold. It was a fall trip, and I was like, "Well, man, if I can reach one of these noodles, I think I can help you." So I got all the way in there as far as I could, and I barely got a hold of one of those pool noodles, and I pulled on it, and I broke a chunk off just big enough. We was able to tear it into chunks and plug up the hole in his boat so he keep his butt dry. So it worked, you know.
Yeah.
You got some pink scupper plugs, but it saved him.
Yeah. I think we all started out with that one way too small kayak, you know, and I hope everybody hasn't done the Walmart special, but that is by far the unsafest kayak out there.
Yeah.
You know, but we all learn with their way too small kayak first, and then we upsize to
my first one was an Ascend T10, I think.
T10, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm here to tell you, like, even with I rigged up some outriggers for that boat. There's no way I'd try to pack camping gear on that boat, and I definitely wouldn't try to catch anything over 20 pounds out of it.
Yep. They sit so low as it is. It's ridiculous how low they sit.
Yeah, and I'm not a graceful person, like, at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the only benefit to that boat was I could carry it on my shoulder.
Yeah.
But that was about it. That was the only benefit it had.
Yeah, that's the only good thing about those smaller ones, but they're worthless on the water unless you enjoy swimming a lot.
Yeah, and I enjoy swimming, but not for that reason. I don't want to have to swim out my stuff.
Yep.
You know, when that tackle box sinks to the bottom, it stays. It's got about 3 pounds of lead in it. So
yeah, that's mine too.
At least. I mean,
mine same way as well.
I actually stopped putting my lead in my terminal box for that reason, because the one accident we've had, the fella stuff was all. I mean, he had probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 sinkers in there. So I mean, that tackle box was gone. There was no getting it back. I mean, it was full of, you know, brand new hooks. I mean, there's probably $100 worth of terminal in there, and it's just gone. So
I feel his pain. My one flip over, I lost my whole box and everything too. Same thing. About 3 pounds of lead, but I probably had about $200 worth of tackle in that thing. So
yeah,
I feel his pain.
So John Carlton just said that practice golf balls work good for scupper plug holes. I could see that. They'd be lightweight and they're cheap.
They're be careful with those though. They'll eventually crack your scupper plugs.
Will
Or
they?
your scupper holes. Yeah. I tried them before. I put them in a kayak, and just the pressure over time and them swelling with water,
Yeah,
they will crack it. So be careful with those.
I would wonder. I'd wonder if those foam things would not expand if they got cold and froze too.
That's what I'm talking about. You know, they fill up with water, they expand out. You know, and if you get a cold enough night, yeah, they'll crack it out. So be careful with them.
Yeah.
They got designed ones that you could put in if you wanted to that do the job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I got mine. I tied mine because the F12 just got the two in the back.
Yep.
I tied them together with paracord, and I've also got a piece of paracord tied to that. They're tied off to my chair, so they're not going nowhere.
Yeah.
Which I very seldom ever pull them. Like the only time I ever pull them is when I wash my boat, which is about once a year. So usually I just lean it up against the fence and rinse all the sand out of it, and that's good enough.
You do more than me.
Yeah.
I get home from a trip and I just put it on the stand and call it a day.
Yeah.
Next trip I go out and I'm like, oh man, I should have cleaned that out. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Well, my biggest thing is I got to figure out a cutting board. Like I don't like cutting bait on the bottom of my boat, obviously, because the floor is flexible and it makes me worry.
Do you do that?
Hmm?
Do you do that though? You cut it on the floor there?
Not on the floor. I do it over on the side where the cup holder is.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm very, very careful not to go through and score the plastic over and over again.
You know what I got? I got scissors.
Yeah.
I got some strong utility scissors, and I just scissor them up and everything. Don't even deal with knives or cutting.
Well, now that I got the front of my boat and how I carry all my camping gear down in the hole, I just keep my bait. The only thing in the front of my boat is like my chair, my boots, and my bait cooler.
Yeah.
So I just slide that bait cooler back and use the top of that now. And then slide back. I've got my bait knife, a little sheath kind of mounted to it, so it's all right there together.
Yep.
So during a paddle, I can strap it all down, and then when I start fishing, it's easy just to unclip it. I used to be into motorcycles. I used to have a dual sport bike, adventure bike, and I kept all the bungee cord tie down stuff for that thing because it's fantastic for the kayak because they clip, but they've got like an 8-inch bungee on them, so you can really lock stuff down nice and tight. So I kept all that, and I even still use the dry bags for my riding for my bike. Like the dry bags that went in the panniers.
Yep.
I still use those to pack my clothes in. So I'm probably the only kayaker out there with Tusk gear bags. But they work, They're I think they're 30 liter or something like that. So 2 of them will carry all my clothes.
No, you got to do what you got to do, especially when you're out all weekend long out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I do the exact same thing. I got a couple of those, strap downs on the front and dry bags and filled full of everything. And
yeah, I think I've probably got about 5 of the Yak Attack plastic cleats on the tracks of my boat, just in random places to tie stuff down, bungee cords and stuff.
Yep.
And then I actually just put a Yak Attack cup holder on my boat, and I intend to use that for sinkers.
That's what I did with mine too.
Because I've been doing the Crown Whirl bag thing, which works really good. Because like I said, I didn't want them in my terminal box for the sinking, just in case I flip.
Yeah.
But the Crown Whirl bag is starting to deteriorate. And I don't want to pick it up and be sitting on a brush pile and have an 8-ounce sinker fall out and smack the bottom of my boat.
Yeah.
So that's why I got all my sinkers in.
XTR 130 Bonafide are very nice kayaks.
Bonafide makes good boats. I mean, I'm only familiar with I think my buddy Ryan he just got a Bonafide, and I don't even know what it is. I can't remember, but he's the chair was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how his chair and on the CK2 that Austin just got. The way the chairs come out of those two boats kind of makes me jealous because, I mean, if my boat's chair came out a little easier, I'd never carry a camp chair, but I hate having to unscrew those plastic nuts. And then if you get sand all in them and try to get them back on there, it's just a no-win situation.
So I hear you.
Those kayak chairs kind of make me jealous a little bit.
I don't know. When I had my feel free, I got jealous of all of my buddies that had new canoes and them pulling their chairs out and they're all sitting upright. But first time I got my new canoe, pulled it out, did the exact same thing, and then tried to screw it back in, like you said, with the sand and everything. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, we're not. Unless you carry a can of compressed air to clean it all out, it's not a good idea.
Yep.
It's not a good idea. I think I had to replace all the little plastic screws on mine because I had a camp chair, but the guy I was fishing with, he wanted to borrow my seat.
Yeah.
I actually set up off the ground a little bit. So I said, sure, as long as you want to take it out, put it back in, go ahead. I don't care. And I think one or two of them, the sand destroyed them. So it wasn't expensive or nothing, but I just put all new ones. I bought the ones with the metal inserts in them this time, so they'll be a little bit stronger.
Oh, you had the plastic ones before,
Yeah.
the original. Yeah. I got the metal ones now too.
I've got the metal inserted ones on everything on my boat now for that very reason.
I'll tell you one thing. After one season, those metal ones, you won't be thinking about pulling your seat out anymore either.
I don't.
Yeah, because they get stuck on them so good that it's not even worth the fight sometimes.
That is a rule on my boat now. Like if you don't have a camp chair, you're sitting on the ground because you're not pulling my chair out of my seat. You're not pulling my seat out of my boat. It's just I've got it right where I want it. I've got it set up just where I load my gear on the back and have my gear on the front. I've got it where my rod holders are where. I mean, everything on my boat is extremely perfect to how I want it, and I'm not going to tamper with it. So
once you find your comfortability in it, you don't want to change anything. I'm the exact same way.
It's taken 5 trips. It's taken 5 3-day trips to figure that perfect spot out, and that's going to stay. So I use a thing called a brush clip to tie off. You can get them at any, I think Academy carries, a Tackle Bandit carries them. You can get them on Amazon. It's just an orange clip with a piece of paracord through it, and I got one on each side. That's just I clip off and dally it off to the cleats on the side of my boat, and I usually just dally off to one side.
Yeah, $20 on Amazon. They're not too expensive. Yep. Don't go out and get the expensive ones. They're just the same thing. The only difference is they gave you a little plastic handle on the end.
Yeah, honestly, like the best brush clip I got is like I had a heavy duty pair of jumper cables that got the cable got cut.
Yeah.
I just clipped the stinking wires off of them, drilled a hole, tied some paracord to it. Dude, that's the best brush clip I've ever had.
I love that you said that. That was the first thing I did too, and everything. I used those as well, and they were amazing. And
yeah,
I thought I was the only crazy one to try that.
They'll hold up to pretty much any fish you catch, but if you get in a pickle, you can give them a hard yank and they'll come loose.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect.
I'm glad I'm not the only crazy one that ever tried that.
Well, hey, it ain't crazy if it works.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is like, I'm very proud to say I've never been pulled off anchor. Like I've never been pulled away from where I've tied off. Because that's just one thing. I don't think that's a good idea. Like if I get pulled off of a tie off, I don't know. Like I said, the rivers I fish are shallow and fast, and typically I'm sitting right above a bunch of structure, and that's just something I don't want to think about.
I've been ripped away from structure probably 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
It's not a fun ride. It might make a great video, but it is not a fun ride.
Yeah. I don't want it. I mean, I'll take a boring video, I guess.
Yeah, I fish one of the biggest rivers in the nation. Missouri River primarily, and getting ripped away on that river, your butt is puckered up on a Kyle Dickens the entire time until you land that fish or you finally find shore again.
Yeah, and see, I don't want to have to go. I mean, if you're dealing with float freely down the river, especially towards a log jam or something, you can't get the fish in fast enough because you're trying to keep your boat straight. Because the last thing you want to do is turn sideways and float into said jam and get rolled upside down.
Yeah, a deadhead will rip you down.
Yeah, then your fish is going to get hung up. I mean, you might as well just cut the fish loose and save yourself.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to do that. So I'll double tie off before I let that happen.
Yeah, I've used double grips and everything else. A couple times I've even done the carabiner, just a straight line, kind of a carabiner wrapped around the log. I've been ripped away still. You know, it's just.
So on your F12, you know, you got the fabric handles.
Yeah.
So like I take one of my big boy takedown rod holders and I'll jam that. I'll just put that thing through there to jam that thing down in the sand, and that'll be one anchor. Then I'll clip off to something, and then that way I'm double anchored. I typically do that if it's sandy because, you know, you never, if you're driving a stake in the ground in the sand, 2 is always better than 1.
Yeah, I just seem to find that random log that feels pretty solid for me out on the river until I get a big old blue hooks up and yanks me away, and all of a sudden I'm floating with a log dragging behind me, and I'm like, oh, it wasn't as secure as I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fortunately here in Oklahoma, you've usually got enough trash along the sides of the river. There's T-posts sticking out, barbed wire, all kinds of good stuff you can clip off to, oil pipe, you know. So, but yeah, like, I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, there's nothing better than just a good solid branch of a tree laying on the side of the bank. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Chris asked about anchor. I've never used an anchor on my kayak. I don't know.
Don't throw an anchor out if you're on a river or a creek or whatever. You got shallow anchor poles though. Like you said, you were putting through your handles. You're using a shallow anchor pole though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's
those
right.
are fine.
Right against the bank. I mean, in 6 inches of water. I mean, the kayak's pretty much sitting on the bank at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as anchor goes, I don't see how that would even work anyway. I mean, the river's 2-3 mile an hour current.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way that's going to work is you tie it to the very front of your boat and fish backwards.
Yeah, it's either that or you got those carabiner trap, whatever the track or whatever. A lot of people use those.
Yeah.
It's just the fact of using an anchor, and if you get a log coming down the river or anything coming down, they catch that anchor, it'll rip the back of your kayak down, and you'll be sunk.
Yep, or take you for a ride that you don't want.
Yep. Yeah. No, anchors are dangerous in kayak.
Yeah, that's all I do is clip off, and I mean I've got a big sheath knife that's mounted to the side of my kayak chair.
Yeah.
Every time I tie off, I unclip that knife so I know right where to go, and all I gotta do is touch that paracord and it's cut.
Yes, sir.
That's just safeties. I mean, I want to come home, so
yeah.
I love fishing, but not enough to drown doing it.
Yep.
But yeah, shallow, fast, sandy rivers, man. That's what I like. If there's more trees, the better.
So if you're new to kayak fishing, what would you suggest on like kayaks, or what type of kayak?
Well, you cut out just a little bit. What was the question?
If you're new to kayaking for catfishing, what would you suggest on like kayaks or?
Man, that's a tough one. It kind of really depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to fish some decent sized water, that's one thing I will say. I agree with like Spencer Bauer on that with the new canoe, the U12. I wouldn't hesitate one bit going out in, like a big lake like Eufaula with 2-foot roller waves. That wouldn't scare me a bit. But it's also a lot of boat to handle on small water. If like my boat, you probably know as well, your F12. I mean, it's a barge. Like it doesn't turn. It's not fast. It doesn't react good. Like I don't paddle that thing upstream at all if I can help it.
Yep.
But for safety reasons, I think it's hard to beat one of those boats, really. I mean, yeah, like I said, it all boils down to what you're going to fish. If you're fishing tiny little creeks, you probably get by with a smaller bonafide or, something like that, or maybe like an F10 we talked about earlier, something a little bit smaller. But I like the idea that I can go fish a little creek that's 10 feet wide, or I can go fish the Missouri River and I'll be safe on my F12.
Yep.
I mean, so
I'll be honest, for the price plus the safety, you can't go wrong with the new canoe and the F12 and the unlimited and new canoe. They priced everything out perfect, but they also build a great kayak.
Yeah.
Not like Hobie. Hobie's going to cost you $5,000. It's going to weigh 3 times as much as the new canoe, and it doesn't even haul as much as the new canoe. So,
like a 450-pound weight cap or something.
Yeah.
And they're usually heavy. Like the boat will weigh like 80, 90 pounds compared to the 70 pounds of the F12.
Yeah.
So, because I can load my F12 on the top of a headache rack by myself. It's not fun, but I can do it.
I would suggest a new canoe to anybody any day, just for the price tag alone and how safe they are. They're very safe.
Right, because if you're thinking, I mean, all the different brands. I mean, I haven't looked at kayaks in a while, but I'm assuming that a majority of them are going to be between 1,400 and probably 2,500.
Yeah,
that's not a big enough price difference to me to give up the safety that I feel in my boat.
Yeah,
I think
and then your canoe F12 is 1,600.
Yeah, I've got the bottom land. I think mine out the door with taxes was about $2,000.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I think I think it was like $200 more because of the bottom land. I wanted the bottom land. At first, I was just being silly, I guess. I wanted to make sure I blended in with the brush piles when I pulled up to them. But I mean, that doesn't matter. I realize it doesn't matter, but that's just kind of how I looked at it. Like if you know, I'm a country boy too. I guess I like camo. I don't know.
No, I agree with you totally on that one.
I can hide in the woods.
You know, I know you don't want the fish to come over and see your dark shadow all of a sudden sit on top of them. You know, like that's some weird brush.
I don't want my boat to look like a giant. What am I?
Log jam or a big old brush pile.
Yeah, a big chartreuse topwater plug.
Yeah, there you go.
I hope I don't make anybody. Well, I don't care if I ruffle feathers or not, but I think the Hobies are for bass fishermen. I mean, that's what I see. Hobies are usually all rigged out. You know, they got the trolling motors and the live scope. I mean, like they got them at Tulsa. They're like $6,000, $7,000 at Tulsa. I'm like, man, I can buy a really nice rigged up John boat for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like a nice 1654 with a motor and all that stuff on it, you know?
Well, then you can put a trolling motor on your new canoe too. They built the back of it for that reason. I got a trolling motor on mine.
Yeah.
You know, like they literally made them so you could do almost anything to them.
They're super versatile.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would, I mean, if I had, you know, if I went out there tomorrow and my kayak was gone, I'd go buy the same stinking kayak.
Well, like you said with the Hobie, though, too, spending that $6,000-$7,000, you could buy 3 unlimited for that price, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's just, I don't know. Like, I just don't see a kayak. I don't need all the electronics for one. Like, all I really need, I need my electronics for 2 things: to find drop-offs and to tell me what the water temp is. That's all I use it for.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like to use mine after spring for a little while, just because of all the waters, you know, all the rains, everything else. You're going to get the river changes quite drastically.
Yeah.
You know, so I want to find where a lot of those new holes are. But once I got a good read on a lot of the spots, you know, I don't even use my electronics again. I got a good feel for the area.
Especially after like a big flood, you know, like
the
river get up bank full or even come out its banks. I mean, when you go back, it's completely different. Like the log jams might be in a different spot. All the sandbar drop offs are different.
Yeah.
Hell, there might be a 12-foot hole you fished 2 weeks before that happened that's 6 inches deep now. You know, there's just no telling. Like one of my best little spots on the Canadian River here in Oklahoma, just happened to find it's public. You walk right up to it, but you got to be ready to walk. It takes about a half a mile of trucking through the nastiest briar patches you ever saw in your life.
Yeah.
Found me a nice scour hole, you know, right behind a huge log jam. I walked down there. You got to wade across knee deep water to get to it, so it kind of sucks. But I mean, that's the first place I ever double digited in blue cats. It's about a 9-foot hole. Everywhere else on the river is like 2 feet deep. This little 9-foot hole was gouged out. It's about 80 feet long and like 8 feet wide.
Yep.
And it's literally like 20 fish stacked up in it. And I sat there and caught like 6 of them before I spooked them out. Went back like 3 months later. You would walk across that without getting your stinking ankles wet.
Yep.
So
I agree with you when it comes to the fall, just because the river doesn't change as much. You know, you get in spring and early summer, that river is going to change every month, just because of all the rains and everything else. Fall rolls around, you got a lot of it where it's the same.
So, got a question about what size of water will we put our kayak? So I'm actually planning a trip with another guy for a 6-day trip on the Missouri River, if that answers your question. You know, that's a pretty big monster with the currents and all that stuff in that river. And I'm 110% confident that I'll have no issues. I mean, the only thing on that river I'll watch is like when you're going around those wing dikes and stuff, because you're talking 5-6 mile an hour current on a river like that. You get caught up in a current behind a wing dike or something. It could probably scare you a little bit, but as long as you use your head and watch what you're doing with your boat, you'll be fine.
Watch those tips. They get up to about 12 miles per hour. When you go around those tips, you got to be careful on them most.
Right on the wing dikes, yep. But I mean, I don't know. I like I said, I'm not much of a lake guy. Like, I'm fixing to start learning. I'm actually fixing to look for a boat. As my buddy Ryan, I'm actually fixing to look into a bigger boat because, man, I'm not afraid to take my new canoe on this lake. But I don't know if y'all are familiar with Lake Eufaula. It's like 110,000 acres of shoreline. It's a monster. It's our biggest man-made lake in the state, if not, several states around us. It's huge.
Yeah.
I'm just not about paddling that much. I mean, I don't mind paddling a little bit, but I'm not, I'm not paddling 3 hours to get to a river channel out in the middle of the lake. I mean, it's just not feasible for me.
I'm not a lake guy either. And I'm not a lake guy because I'm not afraid to get out there and paddle. I'm never afraid to get out and paddle.
Yeah.
I hate the weekend warriors. I hate the fun cruisers and everything else. I hate people.
Yeah.
When I'm out on the water.
Well, I mean, that's all. Yeah, that's my thing. Is like for one, I don't like to deal with boat ramp crap. I don't like to deal with boat ramps. I like to slide my boat off wherever I want to do it. But as far as like the size of the water, like I'm not afraid to put my new canoe anywhere. Like, I'll take it wherever. Like I said, I'll fish a 10-foot wide creek with it. My bait creek, I've taken it like 2 miles up a creek, literally, that's not over knee deep anywhere.
Yep.
It was not fun getting it in there, and it was not fun getting it out, but it was fun once I got it in there.
I found one. I went up a creek the one time that was just wide enough with my son that the new canoe, we had about an inch of water on both sides. That was how wide it was.
Wow.
We got all the way back in there, and we found this little secret pond. Yeah. And it was just loaded with fish. We had a blast that trip.
I wanted to get to the guy. He asked, I don't have a YouTube channel, man. I've thought about it. But I basically, there's a friend of mine I fish with that has a YouTube channel. I'm on 6 or 8 of his videos. That's really all there is for me on YouTube. I don't have a channel. And as far as the Mississippi River, yeah, I'd take it out there. But I mean, the problem with it is it's not the safety of my boat that I'd worry about on the Mississippi. It's the fact that, like, if I wanted to fish the other side, it'd take me 45 minutes to paddle over there.
Where are you going on the Missouri that you wouldn't still have that time getting across?
Well, that's the same problem. That's what we're trying to figure out. Is I told him, I was like, I want to figure out what side of the river's got the most stuff to fish. Like, I'll use Google Maps and figure out what side of the river I want to do.
You guys are just gonna stay on one side?
Probably. I mean, it depends. We might cross it. It just kind of depends.
See, I fish the Missouri all the time in my kayak, and the crossing isn't as much the problem. Just watch the boaters and everything else. Right, be careful on it. Honestly, going around the wing dikes is that's the most dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
Because there's whirlpools behind every one of them.
Yeah. Everybody thinks, you just go around those, that's the safer side or whatever. That's actually the most dangerous side. But if you're on the other side, then you deal with boaters.
Right. Yeah.
So it's,
I'd say the best way to do that would be stay off the wing dike a few, 30 or 40 feet out off the tip of it, and then suck your way back around behind it if that's where you want to fish, which obviously that's where you want to fish. But I mean, that's where
there's a number of things to be scared of on that river. But the only thing that really scares me is why can't I think of the name all of a sudden? Barges,
yeah.
Yep. It's the only thing that scares me because those waves get high enough and enough of them that it doesn't matter what side of the river you're on. I see a barge coming, I literally get all the way off, pull the kayak up on the shoreline, because you get a 3-4 foot wave and you get 4 or 5 of them hitting you.
Right.
It'll swamp you.
Swamp you out at the very least. It'll fill you full of water. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll keep that in mind. I don't plan on being very far off the bank. Like that's my thing, is I like to fish the bank anyway. So, I mean, it's really far, it's in the works. Like, we haven't really set dates or nothing like that. It's just something that, it's just some of the craziness he wanted to invite me on.
Shoot, come up my way. You guys can go out with me.
Yeah. We might do that for sure. I mean, like I said, I'm open for just about anything. Like, I like I love the fishing part, but I'm actually the adventure of it's almost more of a calling for me. I like just being out in the middle of nowhere, and when you have to use the word survival mode in a kayak fishing trip, then you're doing it right.
Yes, I hear you. This is why when I went to message you and hit you up and everything, I'm like, this guy is me. Just he lives in the South. Our style of fishing, everything we do, it's very, very similar, and we don't care what kind of water we're on. None of it scares us.
Water and weather don't really make a difference.
Yep.
I mean, I do draw the line. If it's like in the teens, I'm staying home. Like I'm not trying to go out there and having to figure out how to keep my line on my spools from freezing, but anything over about 25 degrees, I'm all in. I'm ready. I'm good.
Yep. I'm the exact same way. I don't care for the cold as much, but I'll still deal with it. But yeah, when you got the ice building up on your reel like that, that's where I'm like.
So bad. That's the worst way. That's the easiest way to strip gears too, because everything's cold and they're froze up. You're getting mad trying to crank. I mean, I've got a horrible temper when it comes to my gear failing. So I mean, I can't. I just don't put myself in that. I mean, I'll dip it in the river, and if that don't work, I just got to walk away from it. Like I'll wait till I have to pee. I'll thaw her out like that.
When it's that cold out, I focus on saugeye fishing.
Yeah. I've never, there's not really a whole lot of those in Oklahoma. Sorry, I did some brush hogging today. My sinuses are killing me. But when I lived in Tennessee, that was pretty funny. I was the only guy. I was the only person I ever saw fishing. I fished the Cumberland River a lot, and they're around Carthage, Tennessee, where the state record stripers were always getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only guy I ever saw. I had a 16-foot Alumacraft, just nothing fancy. And I was the only person I ever saw in that river fishing log jams and brush piles, down trees and stuff. Now, limb liners would go all over the place, and drop limb lines and stuff, but I never saw anybody rod and reel fishing the brush piles. And that's when I first started watching, like Steve Douglas was the first guy I ever watched catfishing on YouTube. And so I kind of went off what I learned from him, and I started tying off, I'd anchor to the bank like 50, 60 yards above these brush piles and, fan my rods out and stuff. And I caught more big stripers by accident than most of the striper guides I watched floating around the river were able to catch.
Yeah.
And I as when you said saugeye, so I caught my first saugeye on a piece of cut skipjack, catfishing. I caught a couple small blues, and this bite was really weird. I was kind of excited. I thought it was a flathead. And it turned out to be, I don't think it was like an 18-inch saugeye. And I don't even know. I mean, honestly, I don't know what the limit was to keep him or what, but I mean, he swallowed it all the way to his butthole, so I took him home and ate him. There was no way that fish was going to live. He had a 10-aught way down his guts,
Yeah.
I'll let Kyle answer that question if you're okay with that, going where you're at. He's asking if you were in southern Oklahoma, if you're okay with long.
So right now I live in a little town called Chakota. I'm just about 30 minutes south of Muskogee, if that helps him. So I'm like, I'm a couple hours from the Red River. I've got, the Canadian rivers all over the place down here. I've got the Arkansas just to my east. So I mean, I guess I would consider that southern Oklahoma. It's not far south, but it's further south than I did live.
Matthew's down in Arkansas there. He's in northern Arkansas. I'm sure he's trying to maybe make a plan, whatever, you guys get together somewhere down there.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys from over around Fort Smith that have reached out to me. I think one of them's actually supposed to buy a couple of rods from me. But yeah, like I said, I'm open to fish with anybody, man. Like I've got a pretty good group of guys I fish with. We keep a pretty tight circle, but anybody wants to go fishing, and if I'll go, I mean, whatever. I'm not. I'm the
exact same way when it comes down to that. I'm always open to taking anybody out, whoever wants to go.
Yeah.
They got their own kayaks or whatever. I just literally say the same thing,
Right.
As long as you're keeping yourself safe and you're taking, this is your choice. You're not making me have to constantly watch you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is I tell a lot of guys, and I mean, my buddy Ryan, he's a younger fella, and he can contest to this. Like I tell everybody that fishes, like, if you can't take me telling you to die in my way, Like if you're easily offended, we probably shouldn't fish together. Like I said, because if you're doing something stupid, I'm gonna say, hey, you're doing something stupid, and I don't want to have to save you, so stop doing it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I don't like the idea of having to do that. So, but I mean, yeah, it's, you know, I don't know. It's he was saying he lived it in, I think he said Central Arkansas.
Yeah, he's down in Central Arkansas.
Chris is my first stop of the season, hopefully.
Me and Matthew have been talking about getting together. Me going down his way or him coming up my way.
Gotcha.
If you fish with Chris, expect tornadoes.
Expect tornadoes? Well, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos I was in, but we've been pretty close to some tornadoes. Our tornado shelter is usually a tarp.
Me and Terry went out and we got a little small window, and we pushed that window too long to the point that everything was spinning right above us when we finally got out of there.
Wow. Yeah, that'll make you pucker a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, he went the opposite direction I did when we split on the highways too, and I actually had a tornado chasing me for a couple miles. So he even made the smarter choice, you know, which route to go.
Yeah.
My clothes are soaking wet. Like, how's the rest area at?
So kind of backtracking on the braid versus mono. So, you know, I use 80-pound braid, which I use Reaction Tackle and Beyond Braids, the two brands I like to use. Had very good luck with them. They cast great. So I use medium heavy rods to give myself a little bit of flex. That way, that's kind of the weak. You know, I want to say the weak spot, but that's the give for using such a non-stretch line.
Yeah,
I like to use mediums. I really like mediums, but the medium heavy for me is just about the perfect combination of a light tip for, you know, a finicky flathead.
Yep.
But enough backbone. Like I said, like I bear down, like it's either going to break or the fish is going to move is how I look at all my rods. I don't care what brand they are. That's just how I've always been. Like I put everything I got into turning the fish around if that's what it takes. But the medium heavy rods, I feel like are about a perfect fit for me for how I fish. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit on equipment, I was going to ask you guys, you know, what kind of weight of rod you like to run and what reason.
Channel cats, I like mediums.
I could agree with that.
Blues and flatheads, I like medium heavies. If I'm fishing the Missouri River, I just got some heavies because sometimes that backbone can also be a big. That medium heavy can be too light. The backbone's too light. You don't get a hookup sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially with bigger water, heavier current, deeper water, a lot more depth. I mean, most of the rivers and stuff I fish, if you find a 20-foot hole, you found something. You know, that's like wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I fish a lot of like 3, 4, 6 foot of water. That's why in the wintertime it's actually a little easier for me to target fish. You know, I like it in the wintertime. It's easier to find, especially blue cats. For me, I mean, I find a little bit of deep water with some structure around it, and that's usually where they're at.
Yep.
And what's crazy is I've recently learned, you know, how shallow you can catch blue cats. It just blows my mind in the wintertime.
Oh, same with the flatheads.
Yeah.
Crazy how shallow the water they'll go into.
Oh yeah, I've had takedowns where the rod drops and I hear the fish is on the, you know, the fish is breaching the surface because he's in, you know, 15 inches of water.
Yeah, they're going to get themselves into somewhere. They want to be there. They're going to get themselves there.
Yeah.
You know?
If you think about it, like, I mean, every time I throw my throw net, if I catch a nice little live bait I know is on the menu for a flathead, a lot of times I'll put him right back where I caught him. I'll put a hook in him and put him right back in the same boil or same little drop off where I threw my throw net and caught him in the first place. And half the time, that's where he gets bit.
Yeah, but they know where the bait is.
Yep.
You know,
right where he naturally lives.
Yep. Yeah, that's smart. Very smart. A lot of people don't do that. They see the certain, you know, you got to read the rivers and the streams and everything too. You know, you can read, you can see that, you know, where that channel is. You can also see where those deep spots are. You know,
And that's growing up fishing that creek when I was a kid. I mean, that's what I learned to do is, you know, those little mud points. Of course, very, very small. It's very much exaggerated on big rivers, but little mud points, little rock points, little bends in the river. You just look for those little areas where that water's circulating, where it's going to scour out a little hole. and I've just taken that and just turned it into what I do on the river. And I mean, it's been very successful so far. That watching YouTube and just watching what other guys are doing. But yeah, the flatheads, man, that they just, I don't know. It's just something about them. That's just the hardest. That's the hardest fish for me to figure out. And that's why I like to fish for them.
I agree with that one.
Not to mention, you just never know how you the best part about it is like when you get that little dink bite, you feel like you're getting turtled, and you never know if it's going to be a 4-pound flathead or a 70-pound flathead. They bite exactly the same.
Yeah. Yep. Flatheads have their own mind.
Yep. Flatheads are by far my favorite. I really, really love the flatheads, but man, the takedown on the blues just excites me.
Dude, it can be 25 degrees when the blue cats take it down, the way blue cats take it down, you start sweating.
Yep. There's so much.
It's just crazy. Like
that takedown gets me so jacked up and everything, every time. I just can't help it.
I can't help myself.
With video on YouTube, blue cat takedowns are the best, but just fishing, flatheads are the best.
Yeah. I mean, I like them both, but like I said, I'm probably 60-40, as far as the cool thing about it is most of my spots have both species and they really kind of live in the same certain parts of, like, especially in the fall, those two species are a lot of times in the same places.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fishing, like I said, heavy timber on current scenes, 3, 4, 5 foot of water. I mean, sometimes it'll be a flathead, sometimes it'll be a blue. Now, typically I don't catch them out of the same brush pile. It'll either be all flatheads or all blues.
Yeah.
But I catch both out of this. I mean, I'm fishing the same stretches of river, same types of structures, setting up exactly the same way and catching both species.
Yep.
See where I'm at.
What kind of hook do you primarily use?
So I've actually got a couple here. I didn't know if he's going to ask or not, but I really like the Whisker Seeker triple threats.
Whisker Seeker triple threats.
Yeah, I've got some iron sides as well. I've been trying those. I like them. I think they've updated the tips on them a little bit. The earlier iron side hooks, I had a lot of trouble bending the tips with. I catch one fish and roll the point. The newer ones I recently got seem to be a little bit better. But if you check all the rods behind me right now, they're all going to have Whisker Seekers on them.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of my go-to. Like, I've never had one bend. I've never had one get dull.
Yeah.
Never had one break. The bends in the eyes always seem to be good. The snails always work good. I've never had a weak snail knot or anything. I mean, they seem like very good quality hooks. They're a little expensive, but I really like them.
Yeah.
It's also expensive to drive a long ways and float a long ways and have a fish get off from a cheap Amazon hook.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried?
I look at it. I know Dale's circle hooks are pretty good. There's another brand I was just recently told about. I think it's called like Dragon Master Stump Knockers or something.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lighter wire. They look like a pretty good hook. I'll probably try those. I like to try stuff, man. Like, I've got, when I first, from when I first started to now, I went through about every brand of rod there is. I went through all the different braid. I mean, I just like to try stuff. I mean, until I find what I like.
Trophy Cat tackle, the switchback, but that's been by far my go-to. We're both sponsored with them too, but I'm not just saying that. That's literally been my my go-to. I used to use the Whisker Seeker as well, and I really like them too. I've just had so much luck and everything for the Trophy Cats, and same thing, just as you feel on the Whisker Seeker and everything. The exact same feeling I get with them too.
Yeah. What was your hook? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The what?
What was the hooks you were using?
The Trophy Cat.
Trophy Cat.
Switchbacks, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things about Minotaur hooks as well.
I don't.
I'll try it.
No comment.
Okay.
Minotaur, I have had so many hooks, go right into the trees or catch the rocks, and that tip is gone instantly.
Okay,
and I barely rub them. Barely rub them.
Here, right there, because that irritates the crap out of me. If I can't snag a little golf ball size stick and break it off and bring it in with my hook without bending the tip, then I'm not. I mean, I'm throwing every one of them out on the trash can when I get out of the river. I mean, I don't deal with that.
Yeah, I don't want to. I go on or bad any company or whatever, but like when those miniatures, I don't want to lead anybody wrong either. I do. I get those tips. They just catch something and they bend all the time.
Say, I think Terry's Alexander
I think
said
you're
he's going to be
freezing, Kyle.
I'm sorry. I was reading a comment.
I think you're starting to freeze.
Me?
Oh.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Now?
Starting to get some freezing moments there.
Okay,
You're literally starting to move like robot, like it.
Well, actually,
I think it's the nose is getting rough.
Yeah, I used to use whiskey stickers all the time too, and then a couple of years ago I switched to Trophy Cat, and I love the hooks.
Yeah, like I said, I try a lot of stuff. Like I said, I went through all the different rods. I've used Mad Cats, Whisker Seeker. There for a long time, Whisker Seeker was my favorite rod reel. I really like the cork handles. They come out of the kayak rod holders really good. And that's why I stopped using Mad Cats rods, because they kept getting stuck. They're harder to get out. When you get a hard takedown, it's hard to get them out of the rod holder, in my opinion. But I've kind of settled now. I'm pretty much all Catch the Fever now. I've got Hellcats and Catch the Fever limited rods, Big Cat Fever limited rods. I'm not affiliated with them. It's just the ones I like to use. But I don't know. I was just kind of curious as to what you guys use.
You got to use what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
You got to use what you're comfortable with, and you learn over time and everything.
Right.
I like the Whisker Seeker. I like the Whisker Seeker rods and everything else too. And I had the same thing. I almost had a rod get ripped out, and I've used the Mad Cats, and I've had your rods get stuck. And I've used a number of things too. Everybody finds what they actually enjoy the most after years of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like I really like the Hellcats. I wish they were a little bit cheaper, but I mean, you kind of, like you said, it's personal preference. If that's what you want, that's what you pay for. But the limited rod, Big Cat Fever limited rods are probably my favorite. Like they're good looking rods. They're not real blingy, they're not real flashy, but they're a very good looking rod. I really like them a lot.
Hey, I caught a lot of big cats on Berkeley Big Game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my brother swears by the big game braid on his bait rods. That's all he runs on his bait rods, big game braid. And it casts good. I mean, it'll cast just as good as the Beyond braid on my bait rods. So, and then I really like the PC Fun Alios 400 reels. Man, them things are freaking winches.
Oh yeah, those freaking Alios. I just got me a couple of them too. I've had the 300 for a while, and I do the bumping. And the 300 is great for bumping.
Oh yeah,
great reel for bumping, but it definitely does not have the backbone that the 400 does. So.
Yeah. See, I went with the 400s. If the 300 had clickers, I'd probably run a couple of them.
Yep.
But I like the 400s because I kind of was dumb. I went ahead and bought all 8-to-1s. I bought one 6-to-1. The last one I bought was a 6-to-1 ratio. Everything else I got is 8-to-1. And I think I like the 6-to-1 better for brush pile fishing and kayak fishing. Now for bumping, I would think the 8-to-1 would be better. Because
it's just a line retrieve. Yeah, I agree. I like the 661 just because of the power. It's definitely got more power.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also a pretty big fan of the Okuma Coldwater. I really like those reels as well. I've not had any issues with them, and I've got a one Okuma Komodo I really like, but I mean, it's I can't really buy more than one of those. I'll get in trouble.
Yeah,
they're a little pricier. I like
they definitely get up there. Yeah,
$120, $130 reels.
Yeah, well, those Alligators, same thing. They're 140, 150.
Yeah,
I think on certain sites or whatever. Yeah, but they really are for that low profile as well. Yeah, how they fit, man.
I had a guy ask me the other day. He said, "How you pulling all those big flatheads out of that brush with those low profile reels?" I was like, "Well, man, before you ask that question, just try to use one."
Yep.
I was like, every time you crank that handle, you pick up like 40 inches of line. I said, it's incredible. They're just crazy. They're winches. They're crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I can ski a 6 or 8 pound fish across the top of the river if I want to. I mean, it's nuts how fast they reel and how well they cast pretty good. They're smooth. I mean, they got a decent clicker. I like them.
I was going to say, I don't think it matters the reel when it comes down to gar. You're going to skate them across surface regardless.
Yeah, but that's just fun. mean, ain't that what they're for? I mean, they're shaped like a torpedo. I thought that's what you're supposed to do with them.
Sometimes I have a hard time telling if it's a gar or it's a stick I'm reeling in because that's just the way they come in.
Yeah. Yeah, I just about always guarantee it's a gar just because I don't like dealing with them.
Yeah, I don't care for them too much. Bait stealers.
I don't know. I'd almost rather deal with gar than my biggest pet peeve. And I mean, I don't dislike channel cat by no means. But when I do start getting channel cat bites, I usually pack up and leave because what I'm looking for is not there if there's a 5-pound channel cat down there.
Yep.
But man, it irritates the crap out of me when I get a nice fresh green sunfish and drop him right in the right spot. He gets a little bump and I reel him in and he's crushed right behind the gills.
Yep.
In a channel cat's mouth, man, that irritates the crap out of me.
I was gonna say turtles. Turtles irritate me the most when it comes down to it because they bite your nice, beautiful bait just in that perfect spot that they're dead.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, the gar, I don't mind the gar. The gar are going to grab it and hold it in its jaws and swim around for a while, and you can cast that bait back out.
Yeah.
You know,
probably the craziest thing I ever saw is I had like an 8-inch bullhead once get picked up by a big gar.
Mm-hmm.
And, he carried it around for probably 15 or 20 minutes. And I finally had enough of it. I knew what it was. So I started, I was just going to try to get the hook in him. And, man, that poor little bullhead looked like he went through like a shredder.
Yes, he did.
I put that little bullhead right back out and ended up catching a flathead on him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to just let him go, try to live the rest of his life as best he could. But he ended up catching a fish. I don't know if he was bleeding, made it better or what, but it was
I'm sure he did.
Probably 20 minutes before dark, he got shredded. Then about 20 minutes after dark, he got eaten by a flathead.
Yeah, he's been injured and everything else. They show that in the water. They sputter. They do all kinds of different things that they wouldn't do if they weren't injured like that. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it helped you actually catch on that afterwards.
Yeah.
I've actually had quite a few of those catches like that with blues afterwards. A gar's grabbed a bait, got it back from the gar, threw it out, and a blue has just slammed it shortly after. And I'm sure it does.
Well, it's really blows my mind is to catch a blue cat. Like I every now and then I'll use a channel cat for bait. Not a lot, but every now and then. If bait's hard to get, I'll use what I can get.
Yeah.
But it's weird when occasionally I'll catch a big blue cat on a live channel. That usually kind of blows my mind a little bit.
See, it's funny. You guys complain about gar. We complain about bowfin here.
Oh yeah, I've heard about them things, man.
Dude, I love bowfin. I love bowfin.
Oh, they're fun to catch, but if you're flathead fishing, they suck.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. At least they're fun to catch. They're not gar that just kill your baits and then they're not even fun to catch. Bowfin are at least fun. I think by far, actually, they're probably pound for pound, probably the hardest fighting fish I've ever fought.
Oh, they are pound to pound hard fighting fish, but it's like
yeah.
You got a nice green sunfish or a creek chub.
Yeah.
Kill it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're fortunate we don't have the bowfins down here.
We don't have them up here either. We don't have them in my area either. I caught some bowfin up in Minnesota, and I thought they were the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like
everybody up there kept telling me that they were snakeheads. They were snakeheads. Just kill it. Throw it on the beach. Throw it on the beach. And I'm like, that's not a snakehead.
Yeah. That'd be something. I think it'd be fun to go snakehead fishing. Like I'm not really big. Again, I'm kind of a catfish snob. Like that's really all I want to fish for. Like I live on one of the best crappie lakes probably in the state of Oklahoma, and I'm sure I'll probably delve in that a little bit because they make good bait. But I would like to go snakehead fishing. I think that'd be a blast. Take some light tackle and some top water. It'd be fun.
Yep.
I've always wondered if they're going to make their way into Oklahoma or not.
Yeah, crappie is probably my second favorite bait when it comes down to it. But a lot of our states around here, you definitely got to watch what state you're in. Missouri's illegal to use crappie. So, in Nebraska you can, but it also depends. So you got to be careful with a lot of those things.
That's the beauty of Oklahoma. I'm pretty certain, unless they changed something last year, as long as you take it by legal means, and it does count against your daily quota, like you can only have so many crappie or so many sand bass or largemouth or whatever.
Yep.
As long as it's legal size and taken by legal means, you can use any game fish you want for bait.
Yeah, that's what I thought was one of the coolest things I saw down in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know, down in Texas, you can't use sunfish or bluegill.
Wow.
Yeah, they're illegal down there to use.
Oh wow, that's weird.
Yeah, but you can go out and catch. Oh man, what are they called? Boy, I'm terrible with names tonight. Brim. You can catch brim. You know, and they're pretty much the same thing as a sunfish or whatever, just bigger.
I was
You
just
can
saying,
use
what's the difference? I
everything,
don't
but
know the difference between a bream and a bluegill. I mean,
right. But yeah,
they all just kind of fall under that bait category.
yeah, that's the way I've always looked at it too. But yeah, no, it's illegal down there, and you know, I try to look up and I've researched some states that I've wanted to go fish and make sure that I'm legal in each law. And some of the baits that you can use and you can't use, it blows me away.
Yeah.
Nebraska, we can't even use cast nets in Nebraska.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
They're not making that easy for you at all, are they?
No, rod and reel, and that's it. You got to catch everything rod and reel. So
yeah,
no, they make it a challenge for us up here.
Yeah. That was what I was going to say a while ago when I was actually at Tulsa Kayak buying my new canoe. I was telling the salesman there, he's a young fella. I was telling him kind of what I planned on doing with it. And he said, well, what kind of bait do you use for stuff like that? I said, whatever I can catch. He said, you don't use bass, do you?
Yeah.
I said, if I can get a nice, I mean, hey, dude, a 3-pound largemouth head's a good overnight bait. Puts off a lot of oil and blood. He goes, don't say that too loud here. You might piss somebody off.
Yeah. I actually enjoy telling the people I use largemouth just to piss them off.
I said, you should have just kept your mouth shut. I said, now you gave me a reason to do it.
Yeah, as long as it's legal size, you know, you obtained it, it's legal size, you can use it. You know, Matthew said Arkansas crappie is illegal in Arkansas as well.
Wow.
To use so.
Well,
and the bream have to be over 4 inches to use.
Well, that's, I mean, I typically try not to keep anything. As far as green sunfish, about 5 inches is about as small as I want to deal with. I mean, a 10-aught hook will do a lot of damage on one much smaller than that anyway. And I usually don't use much smaller than 10-aught hooks.
Yeah. I never like to keep any of the smaller ones either, just for the reason that, I'm not worried about as much as killing it because you can cut it into cut bait afterwards. I still want the, least nice sized cut.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Probably one of the coolest baits I've ever used is like a little river carp sucker. Those are really good bait.
Yeah.
They make fantastic cut bait. And, red horse suckers here in Oklahoma are really, they're hard to find, but if you find a creek full of them, man, you'll find a ton of them. Like they're either there or they're not. But when they're there, like you take a little 3-foot throw net, just wade the creek and push the school around until you get your net on them.
Yep.
But you have to have a small throw net because you can't, it's just, there's not enough room to manage anything bigger than about a 3 or 4 footer.
I was literally just going to say red horse. I was literally going to say that. So.
Yep. Now they're very hard to keep for live bait for more than about 24 hours, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are.
But I mean, talk about great cut bait too. You can, a 12, 14-inch river red horse. You take him and cut him into 2 big pieces. You got 2 great big, pieces of cut bait that'll put off scent for hours.
Yeah, they bleed like crazy too.
Crazy,
It's crazy how much they bleed.
Yeah.
Yep.
He said, I enjoy telling people I eat bass and smile while doing it. I agree.
Matthew's always got the jokes.
There's always, it just, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I don't get mad when people tell me they'll use catfish for bait. Like I know a couple of guys have caught big flatheads on little flatheads. I mean, will I do it? No, I won't do that to a flathead, but I do eat them. I eat the small ones. They're my favorite ones to eat out of all the catfish species. So,
yeah,
they're probably the best.
Well, we're on the river, man. It's cold. It's hard to beat some fresh blackened catfish.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Flathead is my best.
I don't eat fish.
I don't eat fish, though.
Oh, that's right. You say that.
I would have to disagree, but either way.
You can't eat fried flathead. You dang sure don't want to eat no sardines, buddy.
I have tried it. I've tried everything, every which way. I've tried more fish than most people have ever tried in their life that love fish. Never found one other than tuna. I'll eat tuna.
Wow, really?
Like fresh tuna?
Tuna doesn't taste like fish, nor does it smell like fish.
I think it does.
Oh, well.
Okay. Well, you win. It smells like cat food.
Oh, well. Now you're just trying to ruin it for me.
I mean, really, honestly, that's why I like having, because I've got a couple of ponds where I catch massive bluegill, like they're massive, like 8-9 inch massive bluegill, and it's sometimes it's difficult for me to use those for bait because I really want to cut their heads off and pan fry them. Because they're so good. Bluegill's got to be one of the best tasting fish there is in Oklahoma. I mean, bar none.
The rest of my family, they all love the fish and everything else too, and that's what they always ask to do. Can we keep them and eat them or whatever? And I'm like, nope, I'm putting them in the bait tank.
Yeah. Well, that's how I look at it. If I take, that's why I was saying I cram too much bait in my bait tank. I feel like if nothing else, if the fish ain't biting, I'm going to eat good night too.
Yeah. Well, it's like Chris that was on here earlier, and he asked, what we do for food and drinks and all that stuff. I mean, if you like fish, that's a great option right there yourself.
Yeah.
Just make sure you have your drinks.
Right.
Just eat some fish.
And that's sometimes part of the fun. I always carry. I've got a filtration system, so I always keep that in my kayak just in case. You never know. You might kick your water jug over in the dark trying to catch a fish and lose all your water and not realize it. Yeah, exactly. That's why I carry the filtration system. So I carry ways to filter water out the river. Now I don't like to do that, but I will do it to stay hydrated.
Do you do the straw, or do you have the actual bag that you hang over and let it drip into your?
Yeah, fill it full, then you put the nozzle on it, shoot it into your bucket or into your jug. I typically will boil it too. Because the filtration gets a lot of stuff out, but if you boil it and filter it, 9 times out of 10, you're pretty safe.
Yeah, I got the straw the one time, and I got pretty sick afterwards. I honestly do not suggest that one to anybody.
Yeah,
it did not work the greatest, and the water tasted even muddier than it would if you got it touched in your face otherwise. It was weird.
Okay,
but the bag and doing the bag over and squeezing in, that works great. And I always boil too. Do the boil.
I'll have to keep that.
With it.
I'll keep that in mind.
The Missouri River, I'll tell you one thing, it's definitely one that you don't want to get splashed up into your mouth or whatever. It's not because of as much the taste or the, you got enough cities and small towns, they dump quite a bit of things into it.
Yeah. So. The Arkansas River here, I mean, if you drink that water, even if you filter it, you're probably going to glow in the dark. So I don't even eat fish out of that one. So, I mean, it's got a lot of big fish in it, and I like to catch them, but no. I'll stick with the appendages I was born with. I don't want to grow new ones.
Yeah.
I got in trouble on Facebook over a comment about they put in some kayak chutes or something on the river here in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what happens if you flip over and your face goes in the water? It's like, well, the water tested, the water quality was good today. I was like, well, what about yesterday? Or what about tomorrow? I mean, how's it changed from day to day?
Yeah.
I think they're ignoring some of the water qualities to keep people interested in kayaking down what I call the poop chute.
Yeah.
Let's see, Chris says, I don't eat fish. Oh, he soaks it in salt water for 24 hours. I've soaked it before. Yeah, especially channel cats and blue cats. I've soaked them in salt water before, and I think it probably helps a little bit with the fishy taste if you want to get away from it. But
I get all that. I get all that reason, and what he's talking about. I get what he's talking about as far as soaking it and eating the fish afterwards or whatever. Honestly, that's where you make your better meal. I'm just talking about when you're out on the river and you're out there for 3 days straight. It's a lot easier to bring a little thing of pepper or whatever in a pan and just catch something and grill it up that night than hauling a bunch of food for the whole weekend.
Right. And that's where I was going earlier when I started talking about filtering water and the part of the adventure of it, like we were talking earlier, it's really cool to go on a trip and not take any food.
Yeah.
Like you have no choice. But I also got a few spots where I fish that it's hard to catch a fish small enough to eat because I don't like to kill more than I can consume, that day. Because I got no way of packing it home. I mean, my ice only lasts a couple of days, and that's usually for bait. I'll stick some drinks in there, but I try not to keep my food in there with my bait if I can help it. Because as it melts, you never know if my vacuum sealed steaks or something are going to get, a hole in them. And I really don't want my steak to be shad flavored, if I can help it. But yeah, to go on a trip without food, see, that's kind of what made me, when I started watching Austin's channel, I was like, man, this dude is kind of nuts. He goes out there for 6-7 days, and all he takes is a jug of water, a filter, and a couple cans of sardines. Like, you got to hand it to the guy, like he's dedicated.
I think he's stuck on the clams now. Is it?
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah.
Oysters.
I think he's pretty stuck on the clams now, though.
Smoked oysters, yeah.
Or the oysters, yep. The oysters. Yep. That's what it was.
Actually, I'm going to take some clams next time because I tried those. Those are pretty good.
I'll eat the sardines before I even do the oysters. That's pretty bad.
Have you ever had smoked oysters?
Yes, I've tried a lot of things. That's bad. That touched my tongue for a second, was back out.
I love it. Only time I can't eat them is when it's hot. Do
I?
What?
So what do you eat? Spam?
Oh yeah. Spam's amazing.
Hell, I grew up on fried spam sandwiches.
I love it.
I was gonna say, when I go out on my big trips and everything, I love having that stuff. That's what I do. You guys can do your sardines or whatever. I'll bring a can of spam.
He said he'll be knocking oysters. See, oysters are good.
Oh God. Yeah. Matthew's crazy though too, so
No, he's smart. He knows what's good. It's all about the protein. When you're out there burning all that energy, protein matters.
That's what I'm saying. If they're really worried about food, you don't need to soak your fish. You're going to eat it that night. If you're hungry enough. So
see, that's the question I have to ask myself all the time. Like on like by night 3. All I've had is I normally have pretty good food, but you always have to wonder, is this fish really this good, or am I just that hungry?
Yeah. I won't deny it. I've done some big trips before and everything where I brought a pan with me and I brought, pepper or whatever, and I've caught fish and I ate it that night, because that's what I had at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it the entire time, but that's what I had.
So have you ever talked to anybody that's tried to eat a drum?
Oh yeah.
I hear
I got
bring myself.
Yeah, that on here says they're amazing.
Yeah. I've heard that.
No.
I've not been able to bring myself to do it. For one, I feel like I'm wasting really good bait.
Yeah.
Because drum is literally probably one of my most successful. I think my biggest blue cat, it was caught on cut drum. I've had pretty good luck with drum.
Yep. I agree.
But yeah,
drum head.
Drum head.
Drum head, man, that's one of the bloodiest things out there too.
My brother caught like a 1.5-pound, 2-pound drum and cut it off, cut the head off right at the gills. I think he fished with it all day and then fished with it that night. I think that night he fished that thing for like 15 or 16 hours and caught like his PB blue on it that night.
Yep.
And I think he kept it and caught another like 43-pound blue on it like an hour later.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to beat a drum head.
Yeah, they bleed forever. Common carp is still my always go-to. It's my favorite bait. They bleed. You soak them in their own blood. That meat literally soaks it up and holds that blood forever. Like they just slow drip. Carp is my favorite. Drum is second.
Yeah,
for cut bait. For cut bait.
For cut bait, I probably like common carp and buffalo the best.
Yeah.
Both very tough. If I usually knock a few scales off just where I'm going to hook them. But I mean, if you just get a little bit of that meat or a little bit of that skin, I mean, that's the beauty of it, especially when it's warm weather with the turtles and the gar. They can't tear your bait off near as easy.
Oh yeah, carp skin.
Let alone them to tear it off the hook.
Yeah, carp skin is ridiculously thick and strong.
Tough.
Yep, it is very hard to get it off.
I've heard eels the same way. Like I got a buddy here local in Tulsa that uses a lot of eel.
Jason Montag down in Kansas, he uses the eel too.
Yeah,
I've never had any luck with those things.
I've never used it. I don't. He said I can actually buy them at the fish market alive. I'm like, I might have to try it. I don't know.
You can, but
They seem kind of hard to. They seem kind of hard to get that first cut done. I guess it gets a little easier, but they seem a little hard to cut on that first. You getting that headpiece is a little bit more of a work.
Yeah, they're stupid, slimy, hard to get together and everything. They just I don't think they're that. They're very watery bait, so the blood kind of I don't know. It loses its blood quickly. It's very gummy. I've never had much luck with it. I've tried it. I've tried it probably 4 or 5 times, and
I mean, if it's local to the river I'm fishing, then I'd probably. I don't know, man. I've kind of become a stickler for local bait. I mean, I always take bait no matter where I'm going and what I'm doing. But I've, all my, well, again, I'm about to catch myself lying to you. My biggest fish I've caught have come from little bluegills I brought from home.
yeah.
But
no, I'll say when it comes to the rivers, natural is always better. But the lakes, I could see the eel working on the lakes more than it would a river. You know, especially that blood scent isn't gonna run out, when you're on a lake like it will on a river. That stream will wash it away so quick, and if you got something that doesn't bleed long, it's just not as good.
Yeah. That's what was good about fresh skipjack in Tennessee. Like, you cut the head off of a big skipjack. I mean, that's a good bait for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like, you can pull him out of the water and you're still going to have colored juice coming out of that meat. I mean, it might not be dark red like it was when you started, but they last a long time. But again, they're worthless if you have to freeze them. They're no good after about 2 days on ice. They're trash.
Yeah, I think if they don't get froze right, like when I got shad or whatever, what I like to do when I vacuum seal is make sure I removed all the water, all the slime off of them before I put them in the bag. And then, vacuum seal quick and everything, get them in the freezer. That water, if you leave that water on them or that slime, it ruins them.
Yeah.
When you vacuum seal them. And skipjack, I just agree with you on that one. It doesn't matter what you do; they're just bad after a day or two.
When I would go fish for them, my wife and my son would go because they just had it was fun. You catch 2 or 3 at a time. And I think I'm pretty sure at least in one instance in Tennessee, I cut up a state record skipjack to use for bait. But I'm not really one to be proud of catching the biggest bait. So it didn't really bother me. I think I cut up like a 6.5 pound skipjack. And I think at the time the record was like 5. But what I would do, I'd take my big cooler and I'd take about 3 bags of ice and I'd pour about a half a bucket of river water in there, make a nice icy brine. And I mean, I'd literally from the hook to the brine, and I'd get about 12 or 15 of them, and that's all I'd take, because if I didn't use them all within 2 days, they were raccoon food. I just, I mean, I know they're plentiful, but I mean, I still don't want to just catch them and throw them away, because I wasted them.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. They might be plentiful now, but there's more people out catfishing now and harvesting and skipjack and shad and everything else than there ever was in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'd say you're right.
You don't want it to get to that point that you do have to actually all of a sudden worry. So just take what you need and that's it.
Yep, I'm the same way with almost all my bait. Same way when we eat a fish on the bank. Like if there's 2 of us, we'll try to catch like an 8-pounder. If there's 3 of us, we'll try to catch a 12-pounder. I don't want to take more than I can eat, but I also don't want to eat till I get sick, trying not to waste it. So. I mean, there's been once or twice there's been 1 or 2 nuggets left that we didn't cook. I'll throw it on the hook and see if I can catch something with it before I just throw it away. Yeah. Didn't ever work, but I still tried. For some reason, blue cat won't eat blue cat. Now, blue cat will eat channel cat.
Blue cat will eat channel cat. Blue cat will eat a small flathead. I've had with blue cat cough up a flathead before. They'll eat bullhead. They'll eat everything else, but they won't eat a blue.
Yeah, probably. I mean, green sunfish, if I had to pick a live bait, that would probably be my go-to for life. But man, just sitting here thinking about it, it's really hard to beat like a 12 or 14-inch common carp.
Yep.
For a live bait,
that is by far my favorite live bait.
Yeah, you can nose hook that dude, and he'll stay alive for 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
Or as long as he don't get smoked, something big crushes him or something. But they're hard.
I got a suggestion for you if you do it though too. Scale off the back of the tail fins. Scale off the scales on that back end, so it very, very lightly bleeds. Draws them in so quick.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
for everybody, obviously.
Well, I mean, yeah, and another thing you can think about too is like, sometimes it's hard to find them that small, so I'll go to like 14 to 16-inch carp, and a lot of times I'll take my shears and I'll clip a little bit of the tail off
Oh
because
yeah.
without even with 8 ounces, a 1.5, 2 pound carp will drag that thing around
Yep.
and get you snagged in a heartbeat. And that's something else. A lot of people ask me is like, how long a leader do I run, and do I use a fixed sinker or do I use a slide? I typically keep a slide. I like a sinker slide pretty much for every application. A solid
Really?
fixed sinker is probably going to be a little bit better for super heavy cover, and I've probably lost a few rigs that way. But I do change my leader length. If I'm fishing like some trees laying in a gouge in the river, I'll usually run like a 20-inch leader. But when I really get heavy, I'll drop it to 8 or 10 inches.
Yep.
Just so there's not as much leeway, and I'll move that bait around. I'll move that bait 2 or 3 foot at a time to try to cover because I'll dance around a log jam for 2 or 3 hours if it's a big one.
Yep.
Dropping baits in every nook and cranny I can find. And there's been a few times, I'll hook up with something that I can't get through the hole that I dropped my bait in.
Yep.
Like it's just a lose-lose situation. You pull him against the logs over and over and over, and he just won't come out.
Yep.
Always
Yeah, when I get into the log jams, I like to stick to about that 8 inches.
Yeah.
If I'm throwing out, and I'm not throwing right into that heavy cover like that, I'm the same way. It's 20 inches, but I'm always a fixed sinker. Always a fixed sinker. I
agree. Yeah.
Those sinker slides, I do like them on the smaller creeks, the slower moving rivers and streams, and creeks and everything. But yeah, I like to keep that, fixed sinker. Missouri, man, don't use the slip one. Don't use the slip thing.
Get you all tangled up.
Oh, it's a mess. Yeah, just the cast out and everything else, plus that drop and all that. You could have such a length of lines thrown out. It's just
Yeah, I use sinker slides all the time, but I got slow current rivers where I'm at.
Oh wow. So full of clams, you cut.
Never seen that.
Wow. I don't think there's a lot of clam beds around where I fish. The blue cats are more of they're more predatory. Most areas I fish, they're usually puking up like shad, other catfish. I've never seen one puke up any clams or anything like that, or any mussels. He said mussels, didn't he?
Yeah.
Clams.
Yeah, we don't have that much of. I've never seen that. That's my best friend there, Chad, and we fish together quite often, and I've never seen them full of.
So
back
to the reason I like the slide, it might be a silly reason. I don't even know if it's a smart idea, but I do it and it works. So a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, like I might be 50, 60 yards above the jam I'm fishing, and it might be 30 yards long, and I really like. A lot of guys like the water to jam, slam right into that jam. I kind of like the ones where the water runs along the side of, like, you like a big sycamore tree laying with the river.
Yeah.
And a bunch of crap piling up on top of that.
Yep.
So what I'll do with those sinker slides is I'll cast short, especially if I got, 2 or 3 miles. Most of the river I fish has usually got at least a 2 to 2.5 mile an hour current because it's shallow. I'll put my bait at the front of that log jam, and with that sinker slide, I'll just click the spool, pull about 5 feet of line, and let that sinker will set right there, and that bait will walk its way down that log jam.
Let it flow right into it and everything better. Yep.
Kind of similar to bumping in a way, but I'm just easing that bait along that log jam, at a slow, natural pace.
Yep.
And a lot of times, I've picked up a lot of fish like that. I don't know if I've ever picked up any giants. I'd have to go back and look at my pictures and remember the story behind it, but it's a good way to pick up. It might be a 20-pounder laying back there 20 or 30 feet. And if you let that bait slide down the river real slow to him, it just saves him that much distance he's having to cover to find that bait.
Yep. No, I've done the exact same thing. It definitely works. Like I said, the smaller rivers, slower moving rivers, the creeks and stuff. Oh yeah, it's a great way to do it and get in closer, and you're not casting right into that stuff, where oh man, I just cast right in on it. I know I'm snagged up afterwards. Yeah. No, it's a great way to do it, but like the Missouri River and everything. Yeah, it's just gonna let out line before it ever hits the bottom and everything. The current, it pulls out so far. so much ahead of it. I never use a sinker. Yeah. It's fixed on the Missouri.
Current's ripping a lot better there.
Oh yeah.
So you use like a 3-way swivel and clip your sinker to that, or how do you fix your sinker?
No, it's just a single swivel and everything, and I just take a basic clip, and I just put it right on the top swivel.
So just on top of your barrel swivel.
Yeah, use pyramid sinker, especially in that current. Pyramids will dig in better, but
yeah, because I typically run either Carolina or Santee Cooper rig. That's about all I use. Basically just adding a float to the Carolina rigs. All I do. I mean, that's my 99% of the time rig right there. I'm really bad at about tying, like a 2-hook rig or where you have like 2 feet between them. Now, a lot of times I've learned blue cats are really bad about short biting you, especially when you run like a 3-pound piece of cut bait, like a whole Asian carp head or something. So I got to where I was snailing. The only way I can tie a double hook rig is just how I just kind of taught myself is I snail a bottom hook, and then I come up about 8 inches and snail a top hook, and then I just hook one at the top, one at the back.
Yep.
Is that how you guys do a double hook rig? Or
I do a double hook a lot like that too. I also like to run a stinger out sometimes, but you on the Missouri, you're going to get short bit quite often, no matter what. They're not even going to catch that back hook sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
So honestly, throw out that big bait, wait for that big one to come. That's what I do, because that big one is going to hit it regardless, and they're going to get that hook.
Like if I'm awake, because I'll typically try to stay awake till 11, 12, 1 o'clock because I don't sleep for crap anyway because I'm listening for bells all night.
Yep.
But a lot of the times I'll leave my spool, I'll leave the clicker on and the spool loose. That way, if a big fish picks up that big bait, he can just swim off with it, and I'll give him 60 seconds, 90 seconds, whatever. You kind of just use your gut, when you feel like he's carried a long ways, and especially if he swims a little bit, stops, and then swims a little bit, stops. Usually that tells me he's probably got it down the hatch at that point.
When I see that line, that speed really kind of pick up, then I know he's got it. I always watch for that. They might slow swim with it, and they're just kind of holding it. When I see that line kind of pick up a little bit faster and everything, I'm like, yeah, he's got it now.
Probably the coolest bite. I caught a 55-pound flathead on a bullhead one of my trips in the spring last year. My buddy Ryan was there. My brother was across the river from us, so he was on the other side. And probably the coolest bite I've ever got this witness, because we were sitting there talking, had a little fire going. We'd cook some beans or something. We were just sitting there kind of shooting the bull. And I just out of the corner of my ear, I hear that Alios 400 clicker kind of start rolling. And I look over there, and I see the rod moving. I thought, that's not the bull. It's a big bullhead. It's like a 12-inch bullhead. He's big.
Yeah.
But I had 8 ounces on him, and I had a float on him, and I was like, there's no way that's that bullhead. So we get up, walk down to the rod, and head stopped. Wasn't rolling no more. I just sat there for a minute. I said, he's in a flathead's mouth right now. I said, just give this a second. I eased that rod. I pulled a little bit of line. I eased that rod out of the holder. About that time, my head started swimming again. And I hold that reel up to Ryan. I said, look at that. He's just rolling. He's going right toward that deep pocket over there where that pile of rocks is. He's going to deep water. It's slack to go over there and digest this bullhead. Like, he's got him.
Yep.
I gave him about 8 more feet. And I just clicked that reel into gear, turned the clicker off. I just let him. I just kind of locked it into my hip and let that fish pull it down, and I just rinsed back into him. He was there, man. That was
you let him use his own momentum to hook himself too, and
exactly.
Yep.
He'd already turned around, was going down the river, and that 12-aught got him right in the center, just right in the corner, just like it's supposed to.
Yep.
Like, he was not going nowhere. But that was the coolest bite I've ever got to sit there. I mean, it seemed like it was 5 minutes. It was probably 30 seconds.
Yep.
But it was surreal watching that fish pull that line. And I was telling Ryan, well, he's headed right toward that slack eddy over there. He's going right to that inside eddy to lay on the bottom and digest his meal. So he's got it down the hatch. So we're about to get him.
Yeah, I always think the coolest thing to see fishing is when you hook into a blue and he just hammers that rod down.
Uh-huh.
The coolest thing to hear is that bait clicker clicking away.
Oh, I love it.
Yep.
And those Okuma cold waters got loud clickers, man. That's one of the reasons I like them.
Yeah, those alligators too. Those alligators are pretty loud too. But.
Yeah, and that's when I caught that 72. I caught him. Is this pink Hellcat right here behind me with it's got a cold water on it. And that's my biggest problem is I didn't have the clicker on that reel. I was like, man, that would have sounded so cool because that thing took 40 yards of line before I could even do anything about it. I'm really fortunate I was able to get that fish in as hard as he hit, and I was by myself. I landed that fish unassisted from my boat. So that was probably the wildest ride I've ever been on, because I'm high sticking the fish, trying to keep him out of the rocks and trying to paddle my boat around a little wing. It wasn't a wing dike, it's just a little rock point, but a small river. But that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. But that flathead did not bite like a flathead. Like, he bit like, I would have swore that was a 70-pound blue.
Oh yeah.
Like, he just took it and down the river he went.
Hammered down. I've had a couple of flatheads do that too. That I'm just like,
about half
hammered a bait, and it's the coolest thing.
I don't know if you guys have watched the video, but Austin's got me on video catching a 64, and he hit it the same way. Like, he just, and I stepped right, and he had a camera set up for the takedown and everything, and I was being stupid, stood right in the way when that fish hit.
Oh, I've definitely seen it and everything. I watch all of Austin's videos. I enjoy his stuff.
Yeah.
You guys all fish the same way I do and the same way I like to fish. So of course I'm definitely going to watch you guys' stuff and enjoy it, because we all have the same style, the same techniques, and the same look for that adventure.
That's what we like, yeah. And it's, I mean, at first I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep up with him or not, but I've managed to do so. Like I said, he's quite a bit younger than I am, so. But
I got quite a few friends that are the same way and everything too, and you get to that second day or whatever, it kind of surprises me. Some of my friends that I'm just like, "Are you guys ready to go yet? Are you ready to go?" And they're like, "You ever relax?"
I think that's how he probably feel. Like, I'm usually like up and ready to go, and like,
of
course, I don't have to do film stuff. He's packing camera gear and getting all of his camera getting everything on his boat where it has to go, to where all I gotta do is shovel my crap in a dry bag, throw a bungee cord over, and I'm done.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Then he's going home afterwards and he's editing the videos. I'm the exact same way. I go out all weekend long, then I come home and go to work and come home, and then I'm editing a video, and there's no time to relax and everything. I totally get everything.
That's kind of the reason I don't have a YouTube channel. Is my technical skills, I just don't think I could handle the editing part of it. All my video would be just raw footage is what you get. You just get what you get. It'd be all
sometimes raw is the best.
That's all it's gonna be. Like, camera's gonna come on. There's probably gonna be a rod bent over. You'll see the fish get caught, get weighed, and she's gonna go black until the next bite happens. There ain't gonna be no video in between. So
hey, I've done that in the beginning or whatever too, and it still looks cool at times.
Yeah, I mean, someday I might try it. I don't know. I've got one GoPro. I mean, that's kind of what's cool about how we do it is, I'll put my camera on my boat, and then he'll take my SIM card after the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And we've only recently tried that a couple of times, and it seems to be working out really good, where he can jump to my camera and show the fish that I'm catching, instead of just only that way. All the fish I catch in my boat, he's got it in the same footage for the trip, to where otherwise before, it's just every time we were camping, he'd only get my fish at camp and not on my boat. So so that's
you learn very quickly. Either you're going to enjoy it or you're not. So you do the YouTube or whatever, and you're either going to enjoy it or you're not. You're going to learn very quickly. Just don't put the money into it until you enjoy it.
Yeah, that's why I don't think
it's a very expensive hobby. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm more likely to start a YouTube channel working on stuff than I am to be fishing. To where like, I do a lot of mechanic work too. Like, I work on all my own vehicles. You've probably seen on my Facebook posts. Like, I work on my truck and do all that crap myself. So I'm more likely to make videos like that to help people work on than fishing videos, because I don't know. To me, I just don't. I mean, my fishing video would be so long, because I'm out there for 3 or 4 days at a time.
Yep.
And I don't have 12 extra hours every couple of days to edit that much. So.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't have the skill. Like, I'm not tech savvy whatsoever. If my wife hadn't helped me set this up, like, I wouldn't be on here right now.
I hear you. My boys and my wife helped me out with quite a few of these things in the beginning. So I'm the same way.
It's pretty bad. Like, I can do DVD player stuff like that, but it's like I got to call my 20-year-old to get things technical stuff done for me.
Yep.
Come over here and show me how to use this stupid phone.
I'm still with the keyboard. I'm still that one finger.
And
I'm the same way. So But Terry, you got any final questions for Kyle?
I think I'm good.
Yeah. All right, Kyle. I really appreciate you being on.
No problem.
It's been very enjoyable.
Well,
I know we probably could have gone, for the rest of the night. Honestly, I enjoy talking catfish, and I could talk all night doing this.
That's what my wife told me. I was getting a little nervous. I like 30, 45 minutes coming down to it. We went to dinner a little early, so I come home and she goes, I don't know what you're worried about. You're the most people person I've ever met. Yeah. She's like, you're a social butterfly. So you can talk about fishing, you can talk about trucks, you can talk all night long. So I don't know what you're worried about. So here we are running on 2.5 hours. So she wasn't lying.
I told you nothing to worry about.
When you have something you enjoy that you're talking about, it's just that.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yep.
So
part of the fun.
We really do appreciate you having us, or you coming on and everything.
No problem.
It was great talking with you.
Yep. Anytime, guys.
If you ever want to come back on again, we would love to have you back on too.
Hey, I'll do it.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Let me get some new fish stories first. Like I said, I got to get my elbow fixed and all that stuff. So it'll be a few more weeks before I get to start fishing again. My spring's kind of ruined, but gives me time to get my house all set up and all that stuff and go drive around and find me some new water to catch bait out of.
Oh, yeah. Whenever you're ready to come on, you let us know.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, Kyle.
Appreciate it, guys. Y'all take care.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. See y'all.
See ya.